That was 6 minutes left.
Is there a mercy rule?
Did they turn the clock off?
Yeah,
They turned it off.
I think I'll stay here longer tonight.
Oh, no.
Not.
No.
No.
You can go drive around the block, but we're not staying late.
I don't remember this week. We left last night, crashed, started employee meeting at 7 this morning. We've been eating all day, thanks to Mary.
True story. That's why I'm ready for bed. Well fed and ready for bed.
I was teasing Janet, she was up so early, I thought she'd go to bed at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I told Jerry what time I had to be here at this morning, and it was 7:15, and he's like, and you're still up. I know. And I even got up earlier this morning so that I could go to the gym.
Wow.
So I could eat this cheesecake.
I was not gonna say anything to you.
I did appreciate the light chocolate syrup though. Because obviously if you're eating a slab of cheesecake, you gotta watch that. Yeah.
It was what was on sale, right?
Sometimes I'll she's not sorry. When I'm blasting for groceries. She just wanted to make sure that she has Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday.
It's a community meeting, 1 to 3, and like.
She's not coming again. Move over here.
Her husband, yeah. I just haven't seen him yet, but he's been here lunch in a long time.
Okay, everybody, we'll start this. Hold on. No, go ahead. Okay. You have a question? There's sales tax right now. Number 5. Yeah, David's just updating the financials today. I don't know if this one was done.
The reference to the 1%.
Oh, yeah, that would have been done if you were in, what fund, you're in the capital improvement fund?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if I go, you don't, if I go back up to the general fund, our sales tax is pretty good, it's pretty close. And that 730 is the number I just plugged in because it was way low. We're already 100 and.
That's based on a 2.9% rate.
This is a 2%.
2%.
And then the capital improvement fund's the other 1%. So since I'm on general fund, I haven't reviewed all these updated. Mr. Green is updated yet, but just scrolling down to the overall. About 2.566, we're estimating about 3.1. We're already over budget by almost 20,000. Going down to the end of general fund. Looks like we're anticipating about 664,000 in revenues over expenditures for the year. How much is that? They need to fix this when you scroll down to the bottom.
Scroll down to the bottom, you want to read that?
So go all the way down.
Oh,
Take that slide out. I'll let you do it. So I should drop that. Just scroll through it.
I have 4 children that love, that this, and I'm like,
Carl, did Bill call you today? Armstrong?
Yes, thank you very much. Yep.
I'm trying to place responsibilities on him.
Sure. Yeah, he reached out to me and he offered for us to use that, so yeah, it was very cool, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely, thank you.
so Adrian, you missed our fun class today.
Did I didn't say I beat him.
I don't think it
Oh,
was
okay.
today, but we made this project on plates that was in blue.
Uh-huh.
I'm sending them home with it. This will take 7 days to dry.
Oh, when do you need those stencils, like tomorrow?
Yeah, okay, because I want to try it before.
Okay, alright, I'll bring them to you tomorrow.
We, 3%
It might be early, so I might leave it in the box in
and
here.
2% goes general
If
fund,
you have,
1% goes
okay,
government.
alright, thank you. I gotta bring, I crocheted down a blanket, so I gotta bring that in to her, a baby blanket.
Oh, okay.
I'll cut
So our
those.
rate here is like for the next 5 years.
5.9 will be 3%. 2.9 goes to state.
Yeah, there's no counting, no RTD.
Okay, that was what I was trying to get to.
Yes, 5.9.
Alright, so we're back on track, sorry about that, guys. So what's gonna happen is, we'll give you a final draft tonight during your meeting on the 19th, it'll be out, I'll send it out in the packet. Tell us to go over some numbers, I was hoping, I was kinda glad we moved the meeting last week to this week, so Dave can be here, and I think the financials, but we're still working on that a little bit. The capital improvement fund, what I wanna do is just scroll over this and then actually show you the capital improvement plan that I'm drafting, which is a working copy, or plan and work, so to speak. Definitely want your input on that. The capital improvement fund, sales tax, I'll modify that a little bit as far as revenues. And David, is 12,547, that money will have to transfer from College Trust, the senior donations they've generated, and move that into this, and that's that senior bus grant.
Have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything, Mike Akers, and I'm waiting on.
There is no bus, really.
No, I don't wanna be killed by the senior.
Oh my gosh, Larry, you're gonna be struck by lightning.
Well, I'm just repeating what my wife came back with from the senior center with.
Oh.
Their conversation down there.
I'll find out.
There is no
Better
bus.
put a police officer at your house.
I'll be at the senior mill on Friday
Oh, perfect.
with information, hell or high water.
Give
For
them
what?
some, give them some
The
Kevlar.
bus,
The
the senior
bus.
bus.
Oh no.
You know, Larry said they're thinking I lied to him, so.
Well, Nori
Well, I
made
don't
the
think
comment the
anybody
other
used the
day
word lie.
that she goes, I'm really hoping that the bus isn't in California, because I keep thinking it's gonna get caught in one of those wildfires and burn.
Oh.
Really, Nori? That's like,
Wow.
Pretty deep.
It is insured as soon as it leaves the facility in Colorado Springs.
Oh my goodness.
So the 12,547 is our match, and the grant. This is a new grant for me, so I budgeted revenues coming in, which the seniors have obtained, and I just budgeted them going right back out. So I don't think they're going to bill me for the entire amount. I think they'll just bill me for our percentage. The purple is what I highlighted as part of our capital project for the year. So once we finalize the budget, this will all be white, won't have all the different colors in it. But it helps me mentally track where I'm working on. So the capital improvement fund, economic development plan, most of that will be paid out next year. So I'm looking at 2020 budget. Lincoln Park improvements. Let me scroll over a little bit here. The 390 includes the, that's the expense. Lincoln Park project, and then also our match, the 80,000s in the conservation trust and the use tax. So if I go back up to revenues, you will see that I put in grant revenues here. And And the revenues are not just for the ARC project, but it's also for the DOLA Economic Development Grant. So $350 in GOCO, wishful, keep our fingers crossed. 40,000 financial donations, and then another 16,000 for the grant for economic development. So that's all rolled into one line item, just so you know. Going down, capital outlay, I put $350,000 on capital improvement fund toward the Reynolds Avenue project, the first tier 2. This next year, I put that $700,000, $800,000 expense in Reynolds Avenue, $105,000 water fund for the water line, $350,000 in the capital improvement fund, another $250,000 in the general fund, streets and highways, and then another $150,000 in the transportation fund, maybe used for new roads. So I split it up into taking all out of one fund. That way I could manage other capital projects better. I'm not trying to dip completely into our reserve funds yet. So, in street patching projects, that is a proposal of chip sealing both sides of Main Street, Boa Vista. And I'll get into that more detail here in a minute. The sidewalk fund, here's my rationale on the expenditures. Only spend $50,000 next year in patching. The reason being is we receive about $70,000 in revenues. And in 2 years, we want to build that new sidewalk on Reynolds. And that's going to be $80,000 to $90,000 project. So basically, underspend this year, but the revenue build up, carry over to the next year, we'll have enough money to do the whole project.
On the right, are you doing just the one side of Reynolds?
This is south side of Reynolds from River to Main Street. So,
That ditch will be filled in then?
yeah, David, you want to chime in on that?
Culverted?
Between Main and Division?
Between Main and I didn't bring those plans with me, I apologize. The sidewalk is from Main all the way to River. It's on the south side only. It'll be curb and gutter on both sides, north and south, for the drainage situation, but it will only be, the sidewalk will only be on the south side.
Houses
And then,
East side, you mean?
what's that?
East side of,
on the south side of Reynolds, on your side of Reynolds, that's where the sidewalk
that's
is.
east, isn't it?
No,
You live south of Reynolds.
Reynolds Road.
You're east of Division, but south of Reynolds. Reynolds goes east and west, so on the south side, yeah.
So, on the south side, so to be on your house side of Reynolds is where the sidewalk will be. Most of the ditch does go away, Nick. It ends up being it's what they call a roller coaster a little bit with the road. There'll be some high spots, some low spots to take it to the storm drainage inlets. So the curb and gutter will sheet flow to the inlets, and then we'll put it into a pipe underground and push it to whatever location we are. We're looking at on the east of the east ball field, where there's a small detention pond now. That most of that area outside the ball field fence, the outfield fence, is going to end up being 5 to 6 feet deep and be a detention pond back there. And then part of it is going to push basically from Division. It might be a little bit west of Division. It will push west or push east over to basically where the new fire department is coming across, and then that'll push up and around into the new ponds that part of the work next year will be to excavate the new ponds along Division on that piece of property we bought up there, and fill in the existing pond where it is, redo some piping, a couple other configurations that need to be done up there, so we can get those 2 or 3 lots up there to be able to sell.
Yeah, I was just curious on that ditch right there, getting, I guess, our way to pay rentals there.
Yeah. Yeah, next year is really the prep to take care of the water flow, get the water line, the new water line all the way underneath Reynolds Avenue. And that's a pretty old line. And then in 2021 will be curb gutter solid code. Some storm drain pipe on Reynolds Avenue. A lot of money next year is we spend on digging holes, detention ponds.
So next year, are we gonna put in the pumps to pump the water to those, or are we doing pumps in there?
No pumps.
No,
No
it's
pumps.
all
It's all
gonna-
Natural drainage.
It's all gravity flow.
Gravity pump.
But there won't be, there really won't be any storm drainage pipe put in next year. We'll be digging the detention ponds and getting ready for where that'll go to, and like Troy said, we'll be putting the water line in. So it'll be two years of going back in and ending up having, because we can't really put the storm drain pipes in without having the inlets and then the curb and gutter to feed them. So, and we can't afford to do all that this year with the proposal that we've got right now.
So Reynolds Avenue is proposing a 2-year project overall, and I'll talk more when I show below the capital improvement plan. And then below capital improvement fund is the oversized overweight fund. Right now, since your last budget, this has changed. I placed March 75,000 expenditures. We really need to do something at 32 and Front Street. That is getting a lot of complaints. It's really bad. We passed the top. That's deteriorating. I went out last week and talked to Sean, the guy already makes, he's working on a concrete bid. Because every 5 or so years, we throw asphalt on it, repave it, and we're just throwing money away. There's such heavy volume of trucks out there turning, so I don't know what's gonna be, but I'm guesstimating right now, so this will probably change. We'll see if we can do it. But that whole T intersection from basically where CDOT right away ends across the tracks to about 40 feet past Front Street. I'm doing 8 inches of concrete. So
It's pretty much all the way up to that bridge,
it's in bad shape. We may we have to patch something next year, but I'm not sure we can do it right. I won't go down to water and sewer, because last time we met, I briefly touched on it. I mentioned the sewer, that most of our operations were holding the line, but there was conversations about the fee increase. I told Raph Tellis, who's updating our financial plan for the wastewater, I needed their updated number before our first meeting in December, obviously, but I'm hoping they get it done by the 19th. But right now I built in about a 5%, but we don't know. I'm hoping it's only 5%, not 14. And then I briefly went over the rest of the revenue expenditures. David, just like Carl and Mary, they held the line on their expenditures across the board overall, just scrolling it down. But the purple, that's her. Once we do the pilot study, I'm gambling that we'll get a DOLA grant for $200,000, and I budgeted $300,000. This is about $500,000 to do the design engineering. Hopefully not that much.
Did Don let us keep that money from?
That $200,000 is still on hold, because if the pilot study is successful, as long as we apply it toward the new technology treatment instead of the pilot study, he said more likely they'd let us use it for the D&E, for the new technology. If it doesn't pass CDPHE grades, we have to do the SPR, probably not. So cross my fingers, yeah, that's all.
And the engineering is gonna be a $500,000 bill, regardless of what technology we go with.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
What we do.
So then the utility plan, and based upon comments from a couple of spreadsheets I received back, I did build in water and sewer funds, a truck replacement in public works. No CMAC funds anymore.
Is that $500,000 for the engineering? Is that a competitive number?
Based upon what the engineers have told
For a
us.
modular, if we're going with a RAP, with a modular RAP system, seems like the components are fairly simplistic.
Hopefully a lot less, I agree with you completely. Hopefully it's a lot less than that, but I don't know what that number will be yet.
And when we get multiple bids from, I know JV has an in, but if they wanna charge that, somebody else wants to charge us half of that, I think we need to take hard look.
We can, it's pretty industry typical to be right at 10% of the packet, of the,
Right.
so that's what we're basing that on. We're hoping that we're at a $5 million facility, not a $6-7 million facility.
Right.
And 10% is a pretty industry standard number. Now, somebody might be hungrier and come in at 7 or 8%, but do they have the reputation and the backing and the stuff that JVA has? So you gotta take that into account too. So, yeah, that's.
And that's a conversation we're gonna have with JV, because the pros and cons to it, the pros is JV is working hand in hand with Gross Winds, and so they have the most first-hand knowledge from it as an engineering standpoint from Colorado. But on the flip side, that doesn't mean we just give them a job. So we have to have that hard conversation. The pilot study's done, hopefully successful. So. And here, we purchased that pump for the lift station. I don't know where that money was expended out of, so we need to track that down, David. And I know we paid for that, but I'm not sure where that went to. So that's the line item adjustment. Easy, Carl.
The weapon.
I know you're hungry, but.
Some steak cheesecake.
Yeah, it's sewer, that's the last expenditure in the sewer fund, this pump for lift station. I know we did spend, I think we did spend stuff, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we ended up buying 2 this year.
2, that's right. The water fund, building in a 2% increase. Let me scroll down to those lines we talked about last time. So when the demand charge, it went up. No, it actually went down. Demand charges from Central World, right, David?
Yeah, they're both from Central, but that one went down.
The demand charge went down. It was a treatment charge that went up 18%.
Correct.
So I looked at, in reality, the last few years of what we've actually been paying. So I increased it $10,000, because in the last few years we're going to close to hitting 90,000. Then the demand charge, it varies, because it's based upon demand. This might be a little low, Dave, but take a look at that. But they did reduce their fees for next year.
Well, and they were in kind of a similar position as we were. I wanna say that it was 2001 or 2006 was the last time they had raised rates.
And I was talking to.
So that's why when they took the 18% increase, it was similar to what we ended up doing a few years ago, and then this last year with the sewer fund, it would just have been so long that we had held the line and never done any kind of incremental increase. All of a sudden, it seems like a lot at once.
Well, yesterday morning I was meeting with Yokohama School District and Carl Harvey, Larry from Gilchrist. Carl mentioned the water treatment increase, and he thought it was a 4% increase for the next 5 to 10 years.
That's what I heard, it was 5 to 10 years.
So this is the other grill in the room, the water fund. So we had to make sure we pay attention to the water fund on this sewer. So based upon last night's conversation, finding ways to offset those other costs would be pretty nice to do.
I pulled out, I sincerely apologize, I didn't bring it with me tonight, but my utility bill, last utility bill I had from Frederick. And that included water, trash, sewer, they call it like a miscellaneous fee, and like storm drainage, and then sewers on a separate quarterly bill. But that, just for those 4, was a $62 bill. That was in November timeframe, right? So, but still substantially less than what we're charging. Trash was $12.63.
Is that, and if you get a weekly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Waste management, I believe. And the sewer, I didn't have a sewer bill, so I just texted one of my friends who lives in Frederick currently with, 2 kids, right? So similar to my family. They pay 101 quarterly.
101.
So approximately $33, $34 a month.
So that'd be about $100 so.
Yeah, maybe $500 a month. Which I'm looking at about 100, my bill's typically about 140.
Yeah.
But we got a sidewalk fee and a light fee.
How much is the miscellaneous charge on
It's
this?
only $2 or $3. And that was in end of 2016, so they may have updated, but it wouldn't have been any drastic. So,
Oftentimes though, too, like you will have, I don't think you're.
Oh, go ahead.
But we'll, you know, the way that the town's finances are set up are different than other towns, so maybe, I can't specifically remember which community I was looking at. Their water is way less, but they have, on the other side, they get more money from somewhere we don't. But then their sewer is way higher, but altogether it ends up kind of working out the same.
but aren't they still liable to the same law you cited where those funds have to be solvent on their own, like a water fund has to be financially solvent? So the same thing would be true for Franklin, right, in that regard. So
Yes.
this has me thinking, you know, what are they doing that we aren't doing? Is there a way we could shop around for where we get our water? I mean, I'm thinking, I know this is bold, right? I'm talking bold thoughts here, right?
Yeah.
What can we do? It's got, don't tell me nothing, come on.
What we talked about.
Well, with water, with enough money, we can do anything we want. I mean, David and I met with Central World last year. Looked at we talked about raw water supply plan. We met with Fort Lufkin. In 1994, the Town of Platteville solely went into partnership with Northern Water for CBT, the only potable water source for Platteville. And this general area, Windy Gap's already taken care of. We can't buy more Windy Gap. NISP is being built, but it's years down the line, maybe 3 to 5 years down the line. Fort Lupton has, I think, what Claude say, like 3,000 shares or 1,000 shares in NISP. And they're paying an annual assessment of like $100 to $200 a share. That's just an assessment, because once that project is complete, then Northern sends those 11 communities that are part of that, because all the shares have been bought up already. And Fort Lupton's been wanting to get rid of some, but once that project's complete, and they see what the total cost of construction is, then they assess that toward those shares everybody owns, and Fort Lupton's thinking their shares would be about 35 or 40,000, maybe, they don't know, which is cheaper than CBT, but it's a gamble.
Right.
I mean, I almost came to the board and I asked, let's go buy 100 shares of NISP from Fort Lupton, but I'm not comfortable doing that yet, because I don't know what.
Because they don't know what the final price tag's gonna be.
Because then you see, then once Northern sends, what explained to David and I, once that's built, it's filling with water, we have our water, we're gonna start paying our shares, that we basically will have a 20-year payment plan with Northern to pay it off. So we're gonna have to increase fees to build those annual payments to pay off that multi-million-dollar project. And I'm not there yet on that one.
What about a reservoir that we treat our own water?
That one, I don't know what to say on the.
If I may, what I probably need to have
Like I
you
said,
do
I'm
is
being bold.
jump in and go to some of these water meetings with me. And going back to that, I would encourage any and all of the board, we get an invitation every year from, we've got one tomorrow, I think. What's today? The 7th? It's the 6th. Okay, so it's Friday, that Central Colorado Water Conservancy District, who we get our wells from, that we water the parks with and the ball fields. They're doing a bus tour of a lot of their sites in and around the area. I apologize, just enough stuff going on. I didn't get the information to Mary to invite you guys to go to that.
That's super educational though.
It is, and it can be, but that one is just with the water augmentation stuff. That's just the wells. That's our WUS wells and our GMS wells. Then Northern Water, who we buy the CBT, and CBT stands for Colorado Big Thompson Project. It's the water that comes from the western slope that's brought through the pipes to the east slope. They do 2 different tours every summer One is their West Slope tour, where they load you up in Berthoud, they take 2 or 3 big buses, they go over Trail Ridge, they show you everything on the western slope. They take you to the far pumping plant over there, they explain all of the system, they feed you lunch, they treat you right, they bring you back, and then another day they do the tour on the east side where they show you where NISP is gonna be, and where the Windy Gap Firming Project, which is the new Glade Reservoir, not Glade, Glade is part of NISP, the new, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the new reservoir that's going right behind Carter Lake. But both NISP and the new reservoir going in behind Carter Lake, which the one behind Carter Lake, they just went into design. It's a bid build design. They're finally, after 17 years and a little over $1 million a year of getting through the EPA and the other loop barriers that they've had to, you know, the whatever mouse is, leaping mouse or whatever, they might destroy 2 of those mouse burrows or whatever, you know, the whole 9 yards with all that environmental impact studies. I mean, they have been like 7 years of environmental impact studies on trying to do a reservoir. So trying to do, and the term, when you get around the water folks, they call it a bucket. So, and the idea is we need more buckets, but at this point, California, Arizona, Kansas, other border states, Nebraska, they all are after. We've got compacts that have been in place since the late 1800s, early 1900s, and those water rights have to be met and those kinds of things. So your idea of doing that is, I would guess, so financially out of the picture. The NISP project that we could buy into right now, like Troy said, we could buy 100 shares for about $100,000 from Fort Lupton. That was the price, wasn't it? And but when it's all said and done, those shares are going to cost between 25 and 40. They just 1,000 each, and that's going to be a perpetual bill for the towns that have bought into that. For at least 20 years.
What happens after that?
Well, you own it. Right now, CVT water is 60,000 a share.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it went up to 60.
Yeah, because there's a lady and her husband in town looking to buy the lot next to you, Nick, up here on the 32.5, working with Clayton Homes, and so I reached out. She didn't know how to buy water, so I reached out to Terry Weedman, who we bought water from before, and he called looking at us today that he has one client that's wanting to sell 4 shares, but it's 60,000 minimum a share. If you buy 1 share, he might take 80 for it, but 60,000 per share for minimum of 4 shares. Like, wow.
Which
is
in the
twice what we paid a year ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And Terry told me earlier this week when I initially called him, he said, Troy, it's gonna keep going up.
Yep.
Because CVT is
There's a finite amount of it.
finite amount.
Sounds like they have a monopoly. We don't have another option. Maybe I'm saying there's nobody else to go to.
Fort Lupton has multiple water shares. They even have their own treatment facility, which they also supply part of the water to Hudson. The piping that and building that to get to Platteville, I can't imagine what that 8-9 mile cost would be.
The only other option, Spencer, would be if there was a well that had been adjudicated that had a certain amount of water right that would be allowed to be treated here. There is a developer that thinks he has a well that could potentially do quite a bit, but you thought wastewater treatment was expensive. You know, I mean, we would be looking at $5 to $7 million to build a water treatment facility, and I am not going to get my water licenses.
What if we,
Wellington's building a new one, aren't they?
What's that?
Wellington, aren't they building a new water treatment?
Wellington?
I think so.
They may be, I have no
I
idea.
think it was like 40,000.
well, we're not the only one with this problem. What if we go to neighboring communities? I mean, I know Gilchrist doesn't have any money, but what about Gilchrist and LaSalle? I mean, I don't know.
But And the other thing that gets us is the whole development thing. I mean, if we require somebody to get a CPT share and they're at 60 grand, or they can go down and pay, what's Fort Lupton's price right now, 15, 16, 18,000 per home?
Because they have 3,000 shares they're not using. Yeah.
And they're not offering to sell any of their
That's
CPT.
We're driving people away from living in Platteville.
That's pretty much what it comes down to.
That's why it's super important we do well here, so that in the future, people aren't looking back at us going, what the hell?
So, yeah,
Sincerely challenge you guys to think outside the box so we can get this water from a different source.
well, and
Where is that? Where is that?
The rain god?
well,
Potential well.
one option we talked about when we did the raw water supply plan a few years ago, from Brad Hagan, is, and he lives down in Frederick, so he uses Frederick as an example. They assess when someone comes in 7/10 or 8/10 of a share of water. And he said they were thinking about going to a half a share, but you can't buy a half share of CMT. But they take cash in lieu. And in order to do that though, the development has to provide irrigated, non-potable water for the development. So the homes are only using maybe half a share of water in reality, even like our homes, inside the home. But when you sprinkle your yard and irrigate, that's where the rest of your water goes, and that's a larger volume.
That's what Eaton does, but if we're already backwards on shares,
And we're,
and we buy more,
well, that's just it, we have a little over 940 taps total, we have 855 shares.
that's close.
I mean, it's close. I'm not willing to buy 4 shares of CBT right now, but it may go to 80,000 next month, but, and that's going to deter the development level. Absolutely, residentially especially, it will deter any residential development level.
And unfortunately, CPT shares are a single-use right. We cannot reuse as it leaves the wastewater treatment facility to, say, sprinkle the green belt and the park at Rogers Farm or send it the other
We
direction
can't
over
recycle
to.
water.
You cannot. That's a single use, so it has to go back into the river for the next downstream user.
That's why we can't build detention ponds anymore.
You can build detention ponds, you can't build retention.
There's no option to drill find a water source and drill a well. You know, obviously we have to get lucky, but that's not possible. Yeah, we do not have that.
Because right in here, you'll be in, the South Platte Aquifer. And they've already shut down hundreds, thousands of wells on for the farmers. And,
No field persons down there.
as for the aquifers, they won't supply enough. Unless you have 20, 30, 40 wells. And then you're just mining water,
Yeah.
because they're slow replenishing aquifers.
Parker on the aquifer down there, right? It's a pretty substantial one. I believe Parker, Colorado.
They're in Denver, they've got all 3 of them.
Well, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Part of southern Denver, Parker, Cherry Creek, some of the others down there, they actually are buying water rights up here. They're buying farmland with water, drying up the farmland, and then working on, basically transfers of the water from up here. They either pipe it or they do something different to get it down there, so they've got more rights, and then they release below that. I mean, yeah, honestly, this time of year, 80% of what's coming down the Platte, 80 to 85% of what's coming down the Platte is wastewater effluent out of Denver Metro and both the Hyde plant and the Brighton plant.
Always too many kids down the river when it comes winter time.
Yeah.
So it's a long conversation. One last thing before we move on. I mean, on the screen, this is water fund, I put the other half of the public works trust, and there's $105,000 bill for the Reynolds Avenue water line.
Where's the other half of the truck?
There's 35 in
Sewer.
sewer, 25 in water.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't decided whether that's right half or left half, but
Once we get the
Or
steering.
front or the back?
if we've got a clown truck
Your truck
going down the
bends your
street,
axles and comes
that's
next to
the
you.
public works truck.
So there's more in sewer, it's part of the front half, the engine. But another thought, Spencer, that I talked to David about, and I'm a little hesitant, I'm really hesitant to do this, is we have this ditch water. And we have 1324 share of ditch water. And one thing we learned that on the raw water supply plan study is we could trade ditch water for CBT water if for only the other owners on the ditch have CBT.
Right.
And that would be like a lease exchange. But Brad Hagan at the time asked me, he goes, well, if you value your ditch water, it's probably worth at that time $3 or $4 million.
For less than a half a share.
For less than
Right half a share.
for half a share of ditch
Because of
water.
how old our ditch water is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said, you know, you never wanna sell something like water, but if you sell ditch water to buy CBT water, it may be worth your gamble. So that's something we can take a look at, is sell part of it. We need some of it for the cemetery.
How many shares do we have, the Star Chef lease?
They lease, 12/24ths, they lease a half share, and we keep 1/24th to do the cemetery with.
So most of that water, we don't ever use. And it's very valuable. If you lease it, it's, depends on the dollar, you only lease it for like $2,500 a year, because that's the good rate for irrigation ditch water.
And the other side of the coin is, we're leasing it so we show use, because if we don't show use, then basically you don't use it, you lose it, and the value of it goes away. So.
And Aurora's been known to take water, that's not.
Yeah, Aurora is the biggest holder, the biggest shareholder on that ditch.
So let's say you executed this plan you're talking about, Troy, what would it look like in theory?
We find a buyer for the ditch water amongst the other members of the ditch, because we can't go outside of our area.
The dairy on the hill would buy it.
The dairy, yeah, Gary Henderson, he's offered to buy it before, so we basically do a contract to purchase, we sell those rights, take the money, and then go out for CBT immediately and buy their CBT. But why would I have CBT locked up before I sold the ditch water? So
And how would that, what would that ultimately, would get us more shares, but what would we turn around and be able to offer those to prospective home buyers at a reduced, but because we can buy so many, we can probably buy them at a discounted price, right? Instead of paying
typically the more volume of CBT you buy, but nowadays I can't say that.
It's all bought up though, we have to find someone willing to sell it. It's not like you just go to the store and buy it.
I went to an auction, I went to an online auction 2 years ago, that we got the board to approve that. I don't know if you were around at that time or not. By the time I was ready to put the bid in at what the board allowed me to spend on those shares, it was already twice that amount. They ended up selling those shares for 34 or 37 a piece, and somebody bought all 53.
So it's just an auction game,
So.
Well, there's a lot of moneyed players that are in the business buying water.
Absolutely. I don't know that CBT, you're recircling back to CBT, and I don't think.
Or take that water and go buy NISP and pay off your long-term debt for potential NISP.
Right.
Investment. I mean, I'm just using CBT because that's what I'm used to, that's all Platteville has. But say you sell $2 million worth of ditch water, hypothetically. You go to Fort Lupton, buy 100 shares for 100,000, put the rest in the bank, so when our notes due, we can pay it off. I mean, I really want to work with a water engineer on this conversation.
Absolutely.
And someone like Terry Weedham.
But just purchasing water isn't gonna lower our rates.
No, but for future growth and development, it's helped out quite a bit.
So, if you're looking at getting enough water to grow our rates, this is what it is.
Right. I understand that. Maybe in the long term, when we're dead and gone, we'll have to put in the work to make people pay less, right? Which ultimately, that's
That's our goal.
a win, right?
Yeah.
We be nice to lower everybody's rates tomorrow, but as long as we keep them down in 20 years, we did our job, right? So
By that time.
we could potentially, we did the NISP thing, we could potentially accept NISP shares at Furman Developer. You know what I mean? We could
As
open
long as
that.
they could buy into it, like CBT can still find the market, NISP. I know when Dave and I met with Northern, I think there's 11 communities that bought up all the NISP, so you have to buy it from them. And some will, like enough of them will sell it, others aren't.
So I guess what I've asked the board is, can we put a little bit of money in the budget this year to talk to a water engineer about if this even makes sense financially?
Didn't we have a water engineer a couple years ago?
Brad Hagan
Yeah.
from Frederick, and Adam Smith, his partner, he's our civil engineer for the energy park. I can revisit conversation Dave and I can with Brad and go over a raw water supply thing, because he made some recommendations there in the raw water supply thing. Take a look at it. I don't think that we need to budget a whole lot of money for that.
Okay.
We have 10,000 budgeted in augmentation plan and engineering, which we haven't used any this year, so we'll just dip from that to talk to Brad. Revisit that.
Is that last report on the Dropbox by any chance, do you know, Mary? Brad Higgins' last water report?
No, that's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think that was in
It might be in the archive folders.
Doesn't feel like
If
that
you
long.
can give me a date, I can look.
And with the price of CBT doubling in that time, it seems like a
He had plans for us to do with was, and, I mean, not that we would revisit it again, but we should look at that,
Yeah,
right?
oh, absolutely.
Cause GAS and is it GAS? And was
The
and
WAS and GMS.
GMS, well, he had recommendations for all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Well, part of it, what he recommended, and we need to go on to another topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But to establish a raw water enterprise fund for development, like right now, we have a water enterprise fund in which development brings in CBT water and we pay for treated water, but he said establishing a raw water, non-potable enterprise fund is something to consider. And some communities are doing that because they're accepting dedications of raw water, not just potable water.
That's what he says, $14 a year for all the water they use for their drugs. 14, maybe 14 dollars. That would make more sense.
So essentially, between the last 2 months, we've been through the general fund, all the special revenue funds, the water and sewer fund, and touch base on the capital improvement fund. I would like to go to this handout and pass around, if I may. So this last month, a couple of you returned back kind of homework assignment, for lack of a better term. I looked at those and what I'd like to do is establish a itemized 3-year capital improvement plan. Oh, sorry. We have the next one over there, Dave. We'll give it to Spencer.
Just gonna take a chance.
So what I did is, the last few years is we've had short-term, mid-term, and long-range capital, projects, but they were very vague in nature. They just had some names and some ideas, so I broke it down into a 10-year plan. The first 3 are specific. So in 2020, these are key categories: economic development. 2020, these projects are budgeted in our budget as we speak. Complete our economic development plan and start marketing the town through a brochure. Work with Melissa and Platte and Steve with Harris and Platte and Energy Park and those lots. Start that process. I'm determined in next year to get Main Street demolition completed and the undergrounding done. I'm close with Excel. I did reach out to the regional Excel manager, Luke, and he told me by the end of the week he'd let me know what's going on because Al Irmer's design is done. It just needs final management review. And then his manager left. It's politics, I swear. It's driving me crazy. Streets, The big focus is that first year, phase one of Reynolds Avenue, which is mostly the retention, we talked about that. I would like to, do our regular maintenance on streets and go back to patching and chip sealing both sides of Main Street from the division of Vasquez, not Vasquez.
Because we don't know.
We don't know it. That front street 32, I'm still waiting on the ballpark estimate from John, so I have that to determine. And today, I've been emailing back and forth the engineer from LG Everest on the development agreement, so that's very close. When Melissa comes in tomorrow, she can come up Tuesday, she'll be in tomorrow. Her name's Lynn from LG Everest. She wants the plats that were recorded from West Farm, so I'm gonna probably talk to you tomorrow, Mary. I mean, that's before your time, but they want the plats to look at. And that will, no, that is the development plat for the PUD. I sent her the annexation plats, but she thinks there's another plat, I'm not sure, but anyway. But, Matt Notaboom, the general manager from LG Everest has been talking to, they're not opposed to doing improvements to County Road 32.5, it's just, they have their own road guide that they're getting estimates from. And every gravel operation does that. I mean, Limkey up here on the one on 38, they repaved that entire 3-4 miles? I think it's 3 miles.
2.5 or 3.
3 miles for $400,000.
What?
Yeah.
That was just what they charged me for doing 32.5 miles. Like a quarter.
That's what happens when you're in,
Chip sealing, that's paving,
when you're,
right?
that's when you're in partnership
Same
with
thing.
It was an 1.5 inch to 2 inch overlay, but they went in and patched the bad areas and did a 2 inch overlay up there and re-shouldered it and restriped it for right at $400,000.
well,
And yeah, it's a,
but Martin Marietta is in partnership with LG Everest to get mining extracts for their operations, so they're in partnership, so they're gonna get this both. Talk about the sidewalk for downtown, just some patching. Here's your GOCO grant, Lincoln Park renovation project, 470, technically 471. And then the grant, the match, the donations. And the public facilities, we didn't get to this year, but next year, Dave and I have to work with Steve Harris to get the east side cemetery platted. Roads put in, or at least drawn in, so to speak, work on that.
There's a plan, yeah.
There's a plan in. And then capital improvement fund, those are abbreviations to your far right. CF is conservation or cemetery fund, and then CIF is capital improvement fund. Finished room to the century doors, Dave and I didn't get good news today on that, it's gonna be a lot more than that, apparently. Yeah, they were quoting the guts of the door, but not the entire door.
they were quoting the software package to run the door. They were assuming we already had all the strikes, all the electricity, all the everything.
So we're gonna
So it's gonna be closer to what we originally thought it was gonna be.
I was gonna revoke that agreement there with them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, yeah, that wasn't a part of our agreement, we understood the agreement.
So sewer fund, complete the pilot study, and hopefully we'll start the D&E. That D&E probably won't all be done next year, but and the water line in Rolls Avenue we talked about. Fleet vehicles in the law enforcement equipment training fund, there's that CMAC pending vehicle, and another KP vehicle for Carl. Talked about that water sewer fund in line, there's actually 60,000.
Hope it works, pickup truck.
Damn, was it Cadillac?
What?
They
No,
said they
either
didn't
one,
want
look
it
at those.
though, they said they didn't want it, so they wrecked the house.
No, just cause Hawkeye said something doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it was exactly 12 hours ago that you said that comment to David. It's been a long day. And David mentioned our V-box standard rusting out, and that's our main standard for all the streets, so I'll put some money in the streets and highways to replace that V-box standard for a big dump truck, because that sucker's old, it's all rusted up.
Well, it's for our mid-size, or
Your
for
mid-size.
our 1 ton pickup, not for the big one. The big one, we scrapped out. We bought that truck used from City of Loveland, and the V-box that it had on it wasn't in all that great a shape when we bought it a few few years ago, literally the bottom of that one just fell out, so it's just that mag chloride is just hell on anything metal. And so, a few years ago, we had the small V box that we had done, re-welded and put back together, and we kind of patched it and held it together. And the guys were putting a couple of new sprockets on it today and trying to keep it up and running to get us through the season. But yeah, I visited with Troy, and that's something that it may or may not get spent next year, depending on how well we're able to baby what we've got. But it's one of those things that it's gonna have to be replaced before too much longer. So, or we can just skip doing snow plowing in the roads.
So I use the same categories each year. So 2020, those are just my basic proposals. Then the following year, and I like doing this because I like to establish a project and then work hard to find a money to complete the project. Instead of hoping we have money, then we'll figure out what project it is. I like that way. So in 2021, I like to be able to kind of hire a consultant, actually engineer and design what we're gonna do downtown. You know, the curb and gutters, the bulb outs, you know, the landscaping. CDOT works a lot with the engineering company called FHU. They did their fell study. They have a team in FHU that I met with earlier this year actually, that's what they do. They design landscaping and streetscapes for downtown.
And they'll be able to put pictures, so you could actually see your main street.
Like a 3D.
And the bulb outs, and you'll be able to actually physically see.
Yeah, it's like a 3D rendering. Yeah.
And you are comfortable trying to get that done in 2020?
I don't wanna push it, cause we've got several other big projects, but I think it's gonna take me all of 2020 to get CDOT and Excel on board, to get those dedications done, the undergrounding, and the transfer of funds. That's why I'm being conservative here. I like what the benches and the flower pots, but I don't think we'll be, and this is just a suggestion, if things go well and by February we got both Excel going and they're gonna do their project next summer and CDOT says I'll take 3 million, not 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very doubtful because Fort Lupton completed their resolution to devolve Denver Avenue, their main street, and they're still waiting on money. And they don't anticipate they'll get money until the next 2 or 3 years.
And it wouldn't be prudent to do the design without having the devolution completed, even though you're saying you're gonna get it done. You know, I understand the conservatism.
Yeah.
It's also a project that we want to see happen, right? Everybody in this town wants to see Main Street.
I definitely want to see it happen, but I'm not a type of guy to tackle too many big projects. We got wastewater, we've got a GoCo grant, we've got Reynolds Avenue. We got 3 huge projects in 2020. So I know what you're saying, Spencer, but that's not how I work. If you want me to do it, I can do that.
Government is slow.
Yes, we do.
I don't mean you, I mean, it just is. I mean, it's at least a year for anything, because of budget alone.
Well, we've got to spread the wealth. We have X amount of money that I have.
Certainly.
10 times more projects than money, so.
And you do an incredible job for it.
Streets, thank you. So streets, that'd be Reynolds of phase 2 in 2021. That's when we actually see what we want to see, as a paved street, curb gutter sidewalk. And I'm proposing Grand Avenue, right from Town Hall, from 85 to Circle is getting worse by the minute. So I'd like to do a mill overlay. David got a bid from Martin Marietta, and it was right about $250,000 to mill it down, overlay it, look nice. And then in sidewalks, you know, once we do the round sidewalks, I'm thinking that there's enough money, and this is a guess, we would maybe do some sidewalks between where it leaves off at Town Hall at the entrance and go up to River. So there's a pedestrian path. John Rupel doesn't like my idea, but everybody else loves it. Because John Rupel has his garden right through our easement, so.
He asks every year before he
Every
plants.
Is there a chance, because that's a truck route, that the county can give us some money to help do that, or?
Well, I might go after a grant, because it's a truck route, but I might be able to get Dole to help pay half of that cost too.
We also need to ask the county about ditches on the west end of the middle school to see if we can get that, a culvert put in so that we can use that for parking.
Mhm.
That would be amazing. I know years ago, they said they would.
I'm real hesitant with Don Sandoval retiring January 7th.
Yeah, yeah.
They came out with an announcement yesterday asking Northern Colorado managers to apply for his job because they want town managers to be regional village representatives.
You can't.
I did, no. No.
What about the sidewalk connecting the fire hall over here? I see where they kind of like have slabs off and that falls off into our responsibility?
It will, it'll be ours. I didn't put that money back in here because we did the Main Street, but, I haven't even put that in here at all yet, but that's something I need to look at. Let me go back.
Where's it gonna go around the side over here?
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll connect right out here in front, and then depending on where the trees were, we were actually gonna meander it just a little bit to go away from just a boring straight.
So it will connect on.
It'll connect to the, as you go out this evening, right here on the east edge of the front parking lot, there's actually a couple of spots that we could tie it back into pretty easily, right, where it comes off of Grand and Main Street and comes back to the one that's right in front of the building here. Right in this corner, there's a couple of spots that we could tie that in.
I'm gonna pencil that in at 2020, just to read.
Town walk inside.
I'm almost there.
This is a harsh crowd for this lady.
Public facilities in 2021, town entrance
We've
signs.
been working on that for 4 years.
I know. Again, I need an agreement with CDOT, because we can do them on 32.5 at Rogers and cemeteries, but not 85 to 66, until I get an agreement with CDOT. Public Works expansion, maybe a grant. In 2021, I'd like to add on the Public Works. I put in the River Trail system design in 2021 with the go-kart dollar grant. And Rebecca emailed me the other day, and I said, well, we'll pencil it in as an objective. Okay. Sewer
That's
system.
still looking good with, LG. LG Everest, as far as the land.
Yeah, part of that development agreement I'm waiting on. Yep, that's part of that whole agreement. So 2021 is a big expensive year because that's when we're building a sewer system of some kind. Hopefully goes from technologies, but that's when we'll actually break ground on it in 2 years. So CDPHE loan, I'm gonna go after $1 million dollar grant. And we'll see what those final numbers come in, whether we do a lot of bidding out that year. Part of our annual O&M is a Class B operator for wastewater. And to my left, we have a Class C operator. I'm trying to convince him to take his test and we just pay him more than you in-house.
Yes. Why are you hesitant? Just curious. If you wanna get into it, if you don't, I understand. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, and it's fine. There is so much involved with the water and the wastewater side of it, and all of the paperwork. I mean, we've got a minor violation that will be on the report this year because I missed a deadline. We didn't have any problem with the water, we just didn't get the report out by the date they said it was supposed to be out. I don't like that. That was on me because I got busy with some other things and I missed that deadline. So there's a little bit of hesitant, there is just so much paperwork and the new regulations, there is so much going into it that I'm not sure whether I'm comfortable yet trying to continue being the operator in responsible charge as well as getting the other public works stuff done. But having said that, that leads into a little bit more of the conversation that the boss is gonna bring up yet tonight, so.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I was gonna say bump someone else up.
Well, and we do have an individual that is very interested in getting his licensing and continuing to try and do that. His name doesn't happen to be David.
It takes time to go through each license.
But it does. Technically, he could get a C because I am a C operator and he's working under my license right now. And so he can put in the time, and he has put in the time under a C operator, so he would be authorized to take that test. But then we would have to operate under a B operator for at least 2 years, which I have in the past, so I can take the B test. I was working in an A plant before, so I've got the experience that I can put on the application to actually take the test.
This expectation is still that the RAB will be a B.
Unfortunately, the state of Colorado doesn't look at the ease of operation. They look at, it treats this, and this, that's a B. It doesn't matter if it's a simple operation to treat that. And we asked at the state level when we met with GWT and Brett Eisenagel and David Kurz, and we said, what are the odds that when you see how simple this new process is, that would be modified? They said it won't, because you treat this, and this. It's a checkbox. If it treats that, that's a B operator, period, B. So, unfortunately, I can't just stick with my C and lobby them to change it.
So in 2021, just moving along here in the water, I had some pursue water rights, and I put it back in 2020 as well, since we just had a conversation. But I do want to start designing that new 12-inch line for the water tanks. We're gonna have to get this pressure, and I don't know if that's practical in 2021, but I want to pencil it in there.
You can, yeah, we can write all this stuff down, right, and then we
Yeah,
can adjust.
that's what this is for. These are our goals we're setting, and we can modify them year by year, move them around.
Just be on our homework sheet next year.
Yep. And then each year, I was talking to Carl, we're gonna have basically a cop car each year replaced, so that's gonna be a continuation. This morning when I was talking to staff, backhoe came up out of Public Works, and, yeah, Hawkeye was just mad, we need a damn backhoe, blah, blah. So David got some bids today from 103 to 140 roughly, 130.
103 to 123.
What I'm suggesting, and I penciled this in 2021, I believe it was, yeah. Right now in the general fund, I'll go back to it before we stop. I put in, if you notice in the budget, 25,000 as contingency in the general fund. What I'm suggesting we do is build that up to 100,000. Just in case the backhoe goes up. Like Dave and I talked about a year ago, January, we put like 8 or 10 grand in parts into that thing. But it is our most used non-vehicle, trucks, and we use it all the time for everything.
It even becomes a vehicle sometimes.
It does, because the guys don't have the ride, they'll drive to the sewer lagoon. They clean the sewer lagoon, digging graves, all the water lines, road maintenance, fixing the alleys. I mean, that thing is used a lot. And it's vital to our public works group, before
Maybe you need a truck more than a backhoe?
what I'm suggesting is that we just budget contingency in case we need a backhoe in 2020, that we have some contingency to deal with that, but hopefully we get through 2021. And Hawkeye will be happy with it.
Sounds like at this rate, you might build a backhoe.
That's the price for a new one.
Yes, yeah,
New
that's
brand new.
that's a brand new one. And I did pull down both 3 and 5 year lease options, or lease to purchase type thing. And on the 3 year, what'd you figure, Troy, 11 or 12,000 in interest on it?
And I brought up to you, Larry, and I said, if I'm gonna throw 12,000 a year in interest away, I wanna buy the thing brand new.
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Does anybody go to the Richie auction?
Oh, don't buy them,
That's
don't buy
right
them
there.
from Richie.
They're pretty rough.
They're pretty rough.
A lot of what's out there, I've been out there a couple of times, Nick, and once in a while you find a gem, but you really have to know what you're looking for. And I mean, they use a lot of yellow Caterpillar paint out there, so they look pretty when you get there. But
I know where they take their vehicles before they auction them.
is that right? You send them a bill?
I wouldn't buy anything.
No. So in 2022, we're actually building down Main Street. this is my theory, we have it designed, so basically from Grand Avenue here to the alley path, the cracked egg, and then from the post office over to the Double Tree. That's our key area for the downtown improvements. We have some funds built in reserves right now, call it trust. I would pursue a go-forward dollar grant, probably dollar grant. I really need to get to know the new regional director, I don't know that much. Streets, staying on our maintenance program, we'll go back to Old Homestead and Rogers Farm, do the patching. Buckreek Boulevard really needs, that whole thing needs to be repaved, it's just shot. But the rest of the streets in there are holding up pretty decent, they need some TLC.
Unfortunately, they didn't put any base under most of that out there, they just laid it on existing soil that was there and then put about a 2.5 inch.
It was pretty thin too.
Pavement.
It was really thin pavement.
They did that with the house.
Yep.
If and when we do Buckreek, my proposition would be, we'd have to do some visiting with the owners along there. But that's got that center parkway with the trees and the beautiful dandelion patch. With the number of vehicles that are parked on the street, with the number of people that are living in each home, or the number of vehicles that are associated with each home, I mean, you have 4 people in a home, you've probably got 4 to 6 cars at that house, just is what it is. Trying to put a plow down those roads after hours in a snowstorm is a nightmare. So I'd like to get rid of that center parkway. Several of the trees that are still decent, we could bring a tree spade in and move them and put them somewhere else, either still in the Rogers Farm neighborhood out by the park or something, or we could take them and put them in another park somewhere else, so we won't waste the trees. But I think that needs to go away and then just be reconstruction.
Like those that we pulled out of Villa Vista a few years ago, right?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the center one in the entry.
Right, just.
It would be
go across
after you
Rogers
get
Circle.
across Rogers Circle, that piece right down the middle of Buckreek, which would make it a little bit wider road than it probably needs to be for a residential street, but I think that once they get past the initial shock of it,
Well, someone's got a pontoon boat parked or dually parked, I mean, it's really tight.
It's
in there.
very tight.
Very tight.
well, the worst perpetrator on that is a snowplow driver in Brighton, and I give him crap every time I
There
see
you
him.
go. I went back up to 21 real quick, so I forgot Cornell Parks. We have all that designed engineered. So do the parking down there in 21, and then another practice field for the rec department. Quintana didn't like the idea a whole lot, but he's just small down there, because he lives down there.
What didn't he like, the parking or the practice?
He just didn't want more people in the park down there, while he's sleeping, I guess.
That's exactly.
That's exactly what he said. He was smiling at you. Then in 22, maybe finally do a playground down at the community center. Get a little mini grant from GoCo or something.
So if you're putting in money for a GoCo grant in 21 to do design of a potential trail system, then we need to have money to do that design the next year, we get the grant? To
For
match it would be a matching fund sort of grant potentially, right?
in 21.
So next year, in theory, the Parks, Trails and Trees Committee will pursue a design grant for the trail system, right?
But the company is pursuing the mine in another 5 years, right, out there?
Mine, yeah, no.
So would we want to pursue this soon? To
But
do
that's
that,
part
or
of
would we want to wait till they?
Right now, I have the trail system designed in 21. Not next year, but the following year. I know Rebecca wanted to do it this next year, but that's the decision we need to have a conversation.
Well, we would do the grant, we wouldn't be awarded the grant probably until 21.
Okay, yeah,
No,
that time would be fine to submit the grant 20, but if you get the money, then you can do it 2021. Yeah.
Right,
For the design.
For the design and engineering, well, basically the design of the trail system.
yes.
And then we'll add to our.
So then in 2022, we could get another grant to do the building. 20 to 21, we would do another grant application during the design phase that would allow us to potentially do a build out in 2020.
We just penciled that in here, cause I didn't.
Because LG Everest is gonna do a development agreement, that in theory gets us the land on, as soon as that's signed or closely thereafter, right? That's what you're pushing for, right? So we don't have to wait until they start mining to get that land.
No. Once it gets land, I don't care when they mine, it's ours. We'll start doing what we need to. And I wanna keep that mining, and it will be, on the west side of the river. Cause I told my city, I don't think the Corps of Engineers let them mine in the actual floodway.
I couldn't imagine.
There's no way.
I don't know, Barefoot Lakes.
Okay.
They
So,
broke down wetlands, which is really good.
so in 2022, then also have the police department, 21, expand the public workshop, 2022. Every year's a big grant year, so all these big projects are contingent on grants, unless the cash flow comes in, but like use someone else's money if we can. This would be, we have some cash reserves now, that's what's in call it trust. And one last thing we'll talk about before we adopt the budget is we have around 1.7 million in general fund reserves in call it trust. I'd like to have a conversation at the next meeting on the 19th, just as an action item to look at reallocating, redistributing some of those into different call trust accounts, if that makes sense. Maybe some more toward downtown, maybe some more toward the police, more toward public works. Earmark, it's all in call trust, we're not spending it, but earmark it.
You're not gonna take it out of there.
No, I just want to earmark it.
Yeah.
Because when it's earmarked, we all think, well, that's dedicated for that project. It doesn't have to be, but at least we know it is.
So we started earmarking when, people, we got all this money, we're not doing anything with it. Well, we have all this money, we're planning for it. We're working towards a new sewer plant, or we're working towards a, whatever, it's earmarked, so.
This is a little wishful thinking in 2022. I want to do a dollar grant the first cycle for police station. The last cycle, I'd like to pursue one for the actual water line improvements for the 12-inch line.
I missed that, Howard. How'd that go on?
I know.
And then mid-range projects, I really haven't focused on this whole line. I know the community gardens were in there, that could be bumped up. River trail development, I just put that mid-range, so I didn't know for sure when that may or may not happen. Long range, these stay the same, move. I will tell you on Monday, when I was over there with Janet and Cheryl Trent with the seniors, several of them got on me about this truck route. It's like, why can we not move it now? It's like the light's not 34, it's like, who cares? They're getting really tired of that, these trucks.
Who's sure that thought?
I can't remember his name. I think you saw me talking to him, but I can't remember his name right now.
Was it, Pat Schaefer's husband?
No, it wasn't Steve.
Steve doesn't store pots usually.
He was sick, closed the kitchen. I can't really describe him, but anyway. And then one of the other ladies overheard what he was bidding my ear about, so then when I walked by her, she took her turn. And she claims, I don't know, that 20 years ago, there's no trucks on Grand Avenue. It wasn't a truck route. I said, I don't know about that, over here 20 years ago, so.
I'm moving it to 32.5, that'd be over through the residential part, that would just be paved. Would it still be going out and
They
around?
have to go around Shoal to
Okay.
32.5 to 25. And I like to widen that corner because those trucks can't turn very well, the utility pole right there.
Right, and then.
Go north on 25 to 34, then out on 85. So around Shoal, not through Shoal. And I, during my daily cruises, I'm seeing some trucks going through there more often, so we need to probably get on that again.
If they start mining, that can trigger that light sooner than maybe those long range priorities.
Yeah, they start mining and they're gonna put in a traffic plan that has to be approved by the state.
Right.
And then Will County and us will review it. And that can trigger both quicken improvements at kind of 21 and 66, as well as the light 34 and 85.
Oh, I gave a lot of people the CDOT phone number.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh,
Saying.
the new CDOT director, Heather Patterson, loved it, so. Also, long-range planning, we should be receiving at any time, hopefully before the end of the year, $1 million check from CDOT for in exchange for the closure of County Road 30. We'll put that call to trust and build some interest, and that's for South Front Street when the time comes. Then we have our annual ongoing, always review, always plan, vehicle fleet replacement, water sewer line collection replacements, meter replacements, also.
When we put that, the big 12-inch lines in, to put aside a pretty decent amount of money to fix blow-ups everywhere.
I don't know, do you think we'll have that much pressure for blows?
I mean,
I don't know.
the lines getting bigger, is it gonna change the pressure?
The tank levels are the same, so our gravity pressure, the pressure is not gonna go up, it's gonna be a volume increase.
Right, I understand.
Like volume.
So it shouldn't, you're exactly right, Adrian, that if we were increasing the pressure, that we would definitely be looking at other weak spots that are gonna show up. By running some more volume through it, we will get some additional weak spots that may show up. We may have some leaks that we don't realize that were there, but now that we're putting some additional volume past them, they may surface versus just dribbling out into the gravel or something like that. So potentially some, that says 12-inch, I mean, in reality, it's gonna be a 14, 16, 18-inch line, because we all had decided, when it was discussed before, the cost differential between the 12 and the 18 in the actual cost of the pipe is pennies on the dollar to the whole project. So, I don't think there's such a thing as us oversizing that pipe too much. If we're gonna spend the money to cross the railroad and cross 85, we might as well put a big enough pipe in there to make sure that we never have to, future, unless there's a major expansion of town, both north and south, we should never need, we wanna make sure we oversize that to a point that they would never need to do that again, hopefully. So.
Now, didn't you say the school had to put in a booster pump? Is that because of a flow issue, not a pressure issue?
It was a pressure issue.
Right, so we're putting in the lines, we can boost the pressure so that they don't have to have that.
No, it won't boost the pressure, it will increase the volume, which they had to put in a pump because we couldn't supply the volume or the pressure that they needed. They had to put in the pump in order to increase the pressure enough to run their sprinkler system properly. And thus, by increasing the pressure, they're increasing the volume that goes through there. Now, I don't think we ended up, the engineers chatted about all that and I don't think we ended up with a reservoir between their pump and our system. At one point, their engineers came back and their pump would not suck so much that it would create a vacuum in our system. At one point, we had wondered if we needed to have 1,000 or 2,500 gallon buffer, for lack of a better term, so that they never cavitated, their pump wouldn't cavitate our system. So, but,
Okay. So do you have any questions on the proposal? I'll give you a handout so you can have it, keep it, mark it up, whatever the case may be, but this is just my suggestions for the next 3 years in detail, and then some midterm and some long-term. Really, it's going to be short-term and midterm. That's going to be our true objective. Long-term are more down the line, 10, 15, 20 years. And some of this routine stuff, we keep working on streets, keep that plan going on streets. At some point, we'll get every block in Old Town paved or have a sidewalk. So those are long-term objectives. We just have to chip away with it every year. that's my suggestion for our capital improvement plan. Like I said, in 2020, except for waiting on the estimate from Sean for the patching at 32 and Front Street. And also the, what else was it? Oh, the sidewalk for Town Hall, I'll look at, talking to Dave on them on that one. Everything else is currently in the budget, in your draft budget. So I'm gonna suggest two things. Number one, take a 5-minute break. And then we come back, I'm gonna have David Green show a proposed new draft budget format that I mentioned to the board. And then I'll finish up with a staffing proposal for you. And then, like the board to at least give me a number to discuss so I can have David Green put into the budget for salaries for staff. Okay? Alright. Pull up your draft forms.
I will in 5 minutes.
Okay. You gonna put it in the town shared finance folder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just emailed it to you while I done before.
Oh,
I don't think I uploaded it.
okay. Upload the week.
Oh, I thought you were
And
feeling
then-
guilty about something.
That's something that you sent me. Let me see what I can find. Give me a second.
Yeah. Cute?
That's only like an inch across.
Yeah, that's
Oh, that's
big
it.
enough for me.
Cute.
Here,
Ugly spider.
beating him with this
Where?
It's in the
swash.
corner down at the bottom.
Here, okay.
Yeah, paint him.
See Mary?
Mary's like,
Oh my god, if you make him run.
it can't. Oh, here goes Larry.
Larry.
Larry, you keep
better
missing
aim.
him.
Oh, now you got him.
Let him keep coming, just
Now he's part
rub
of the
your foot. DOA.
Thank you.
Sure.
I feel safer already.
I'll come back and get him later.
Think
Pick him up.
federal government just passed something about cruelty to animals?
That was an insect. A raccoon, actually. I don't,
It's still an animal.
no. No.
Yeah, we need
It was an
clarification.
invasion of town hall.
Frederickville, like, another backdrop right next to a wetland. Like Millback, Colorado Boulevard, just north, west of the Safeway. Where that reservoir they have, it's a man-made lake. There's a wetland right to the west of that lake. Must have got some sort of blue bowl to build.
You gotta have rights to build a reservoir.
I don't know.
Yeah. 'Cause everything is, even if it's an aquifer, it's clean.
I was gonna tell you, I didn't bring it up during the meeting, I pay $130 a month on a budget bill for the city of Loveland for water and sewer, and that $130 is water and sewer base rate, usage, and a $3.50 hydrant fee, that's it. I pay $16.50 a month for trash with waste management, and then I'm on a $109 a month budget bill with Excel for power and gas.
They do your gas too.
So, you know, but you go to a big community like Loveland and you would think with all their residents that it would be less, but I pay $130, and I do keep a nice green lawn. And I pay the budget bill, and in April, for the last 2 years, I've had to pay a catch-up. There isn't any extra. So, and that's just water and sewer only.
You know, my son, he's probably 33.
200. I don't know where the streetlights are in my neighborhood, well, the HOA pays for the streetlights. So, and I pay $65 in the HOA each month, but.
What was that guy's name that did our water study a couple years ago?
Brad
Hagen, that's what he said.
Hagen, yes. Yep. What'd you lose?
my sanity.
Well, that's been going a long time.
At least 2 years.
Buy some water rights and get lost some water rights. That was supposed to on that study.
Mr. Hatcher, how are you this evening?
Good, ready another day? What was the brand of the station that's looking in, or contemplating being across the kitty corner across the street?
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. Tell my wife, and I just couldn't remember what station it was.
Your plan is to have a Laredo tacos inside of it?
Have real food in there.
Yeah. Somewhat.
Better than a vending machine.
You know, they just built a 7-Eleven off 52 and 25 to the west of 25
Good.
Frederick. And I imagine that'll be pretty similar to what we'll see. There's a diesel pump in the back, because that's a pretty large lot.
Yeah.
You know, like you could put a 7-Eleven just on the auto sales.
Sure, yeah.
And they're gonna have both lots, so I don't think they're planning on having large trucks, but maybe, you know, like work trucks, diesel stuff.
How are they gonna turn in? I mean, that's a problem down at 66 and 85.
That's the pain, isn't it?
Yeah, so I can't imagine that's a whole lot easier right here either.
Right. That would be interesting, I don't know. Carl, where can you shoot guns around here?
For say you or?
Outside, yeah.
Huh?
Joe Schmo, Platteville citizen.
Yeah.
Not indoors.
You have to find someone that owns a little land or whatever, you're more than welcome to come out to my house anytime. I don't own land, but we live on 1 acre and there's nothing on that side. You can come out there and shoot all you want, but it's a half hour away.
Doesn't seem like there's anything close, right?
No, they have that new range in Johnstown or whatever, I think. They just opened up that new one, and so there are shooting ranges around, but they're
There's the one in none that's outdoor.
yeah.
Yeah, there's one in the Pawnee Reservation.
Yeah, the Pawnee, new rifle and everything.
Really
there.
cool one. I've been up there once. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of tall.
It's far.
It's dry.
Yeah. And if it's windy or anything else, it's kind of windy over there, sort of cold in the winter.
It's cold for sure, yeah. I think a shooting range would be a cool thing to have around here.
Well, that just got, there was a vote here a couple years ago, wasn't it?
Yep.
They
Shot it down.
that was a big,
Yeah.
and so they built it out, was it Brighton or Fort Lupton, didn't they?
That was up on 66.
They built,
Wasn't there a shooting range on
Yeah.
66 that they made
Right,
recently?
right.
They asked us, we wanted to make home.
Who voted for it?
No, it never went in, did it?
They offered if you wanted it first, right?
something else that got turned down.
What's that?
That shooting range, where was that?
There's one in Fort Lupton, Greenwood Village.
Is that the new one that was
Remember that
made?
was gonna go around here and then
There's, oh, that was, over there,
Off 66.
at 17,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh-huh, yeah.
It didn't happen though.
No, the community banded together and shut it down.
Mm.
I didn't understand it, but that's
What's your trip now?
a shooting range.
Oh.
There's something in Berkeley.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, so that wouldn't be too hard.
They're building one in Burlington too.
Oh, are there?
East, right? East of Burlington.
They've got that new nice one, Liberty Firearms, right there off of, in Johnstown, right off of 34, just east of. Super nice, super nice. It is. It's sort of expensive though.
I just
You went there? Oh, no, you went there with your daughter. Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. Every so often. I mean,
I don't know.
it's, I think membership is $60 a month.
There's plenty back there.
If you were shooting,
Kelly,
you
every
don't want to play with pay.
So here's.
I heard that includes gun lockers, so you don't have to carry them back and forth. Then if you pay for the upgraded, gold, the gunsmith will come through and clean them for you, so you don't have to do that.
Where's that?
Liberty Firearms
Oh, really?
in Johnstown. Nice, now, they've got a 100-yard, it's all indoor ranges. They've got a 100-yard range, they've got a 50-yard range, they've got a 25-yard range.
100 yards.
It's, yeah, the ventilation system, when somebody shoots a black powder in there, it's so cool, because you can watch it just roll down. Yes, it sucks the venom. They've got a Gatling gun in there that you can buy the ammo for and then rent the Gatling.
They've got several automatics you can rent.
Yeah, oh yeah, and
Oh, really?
and if you watch their Instagram, they on cold weather days and stuff, they'll pop up for the afternoon or the evening. It's like half price lane rentals and no cost rentals, so you can go in and rent any gun in their inventory and you can buy the ammo just to shoot it, including the Gatling gun.
Oh, darn.
So.
You bet you at least
I
got to
just
go
got
with
to the
spray,
county
but
and I'm tired of
yeah,
fighting
they
my
can
way
fall
out
into
there.
the next.
Oh, this is nice, and they work with all the major cell phone carriers and have booster stations in the basement, because everything's 1 foot thick concrete down in there,
Nice.
between all the ranges and everything else. And
Wow.
so everybody's cell phones work down in the basement. It's a nice, if you haven't been there, it's really nice.
I will have to go there.
Yeah, it's super.
Okay, I'll check that out. Awesome, thank you.
They have an archery range there too.
That you can rent for an hour, you can
But-
stay for 40.
So if you have
They'll print that back to you.
30 round clips,
Just didn't go out there, you'll take
you know, you can't buy it. Now,
You go to Shanghai, $50.
why?
Buy them in
There's
Greeley.
a shortage of them. Just what you can use them for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
What's that?
You can buy 60 round clips in Greeley today. I was at a shop on Saturday, so.
You mean my name?
Yeah. Well, 40 rounders, 30 rounders, they got a wall full of them.
You may give me one, they can't sell
There's,
them.
there's some, because they know that our freedoms are going to enforce the law. They're selling it.
We went to a shop, well, we were given for spending so much money.
It's components,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's
it's a-
taken apart.
Mhm.
It's components.
That's not
It's a
what they do
puzzle.
with tax.
You just bought a puzzle.
Shit.
I keep forgetting to ask you.
The forward, the spring, and the end cap is together.
I don't think
Even the tax people in Greeley.
You probably have time to fix my water leak, right?
Still getting full.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Have unmet. I have an advance.
My wife, they
Took it half
got
a second.
a couple sticky traps in the basement just to get
I love it.
bugs and usually
If you retire, you know,
I ought to just do that.
you can do that anytime you want.
6 Saturdays and 1 Sunday each week.
I got the definite blanket.
Yeah, the wife was just, that was a senior center about 1 o'clock, it's like 1:30 up in there. Woke up, she was home.
I'll wear it until I go to labor, and I did.
I don't want you going to let you down.
Oh, it takes forever.
What are you yawning for? Come on.
Come on, Janet.
Like
I'm
you would
dragging
think
her
that
first
maybe-
dog.
I was there last night till eight
With the 40-50 seat,
Well, let's see, we left here about 8:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were.
Bill Gates.
and I'm not usually at work at 7. Just saying. Let's be honest with that.
Alright, last two things tonight there, everybody, we're gonna wrap this up. So I put up on the screen our fund structure, before I show David's proposal. We have 19 funds that get audited. And the more funds you have, the more money you pay to get audited. And the more David Green has to do when he does our year end. And David and I have been talking about this, started talking about it last year, and then a little more serious conversation this year. So, a lot of special revenue funds. Of course, we have the general fund, our impact fee, we have 5 of those. Of course, we have the water, sewer, and perpetual care funds, so there's 3 of them. Certain ones we have to keep by statute, David's telling me about. So the water, sewer, perpetual care, conservation trust, cemetery, keep Harvest Daze, of course, library. And Veteran Memorial, no? So most of these, I'm gonna show you a draft, won't look like this, but we're gonna put basically one capital improvement fund. And what Dave was telling me is he works for other municipalities, other organizations that, we have the most of anybody. And it's just what we're used to. When I first started, and we started finding revenue sources, we built a sidewalk fund, we built a capital improvement fund, we built an oversized overweight fund. So a lot of these funds, my fault over the years, we want money to come in, revenue. So we segregate it, we want to make sure it only was spent on those things, which makes sense. Well, it still will. But, this is the full one. That's the full one.
Everybody, so this is just capital improvement.
So the capital improvement fund, what we're looking at doing is having our revenues, and it's still marked so you can track. Here's your capital improvement, your use tax, your park impacts, storm impacts, transportation, public facilities, utility billing, that is your sidewalk maintenance revenues, your oversized overweight. So those are all combined in one capital fund, because a lot of these revenues can be used for similar uses when you spend them.
So, if I could point out real quick too on this, as you can see the revenues, you can see all the revenues for these, what used to be separate funds on one screen, right? What I did was I actually took the actual revenue sources from all of these different funds. I think there's about 5 or 6 of them that were combined into this, where you would have had to flip through the 5 or 6 different pages to try to pull those sources of funds out. Now you can clearly see them all in one snapshot. We don't lose any tracking of any of the line items. We're just not calling them all separate funds at this point. We still can tell you exactly what the earnings on there, so you can keep that separate if you want. Keep them all in different college trust accounts, stuff like that as well still too. We're not gonna be losing that. This is just the revenues, it's not the balance sheet. So what this really does is, instead of you guys having, this is really coming down to a user issue is what it really comes down to help you guys out. It's really hard to start picking through when you have something that's split between 3 or 4 or 5 funds, because now you have to go through and you have to add up how much the total cost of this thing really was. Well, that loses some efficiency on your part when you're just trying to snapshot. You guys only have so much time to look at these. Whereas this we can see it all together.
And then, we just talked about capital projects, and, like if one fund, like the sidewalk fund, can't complete a sidewalk project, we did the capital improvement fund. So on this, you'll see one project on one page shown in 2 different funds, not in the revenues, but more so in expenditures. So on the expenditure side, those numbers aren't plugged in yet, but I still want them to mark where you can track them. If there's a capital improvement revenue coming in, you'll show where the expenditures are going out in the capital part of the fund, or the use tax, or the storm drain, so on and so forth.
Right, for accountability.
Yep.
That was my major concern, was the accountability.
Right, and so that's how we're gonna track that, and at the end of so what happens is, at the end of the year, you have fund balance, okay? You have restricted or unrestricted. We're basically gonna just call it restricted for parks, restricted for X, Y, Z. You go down the list and have maybe 7 or 8 different restrictions labeled out.
Right.
So So you can still see how much you have left to spend, and you'll see what carries over from that as well too.
Okay.
And a lot of it too is duplicate, right? I get it's a different revenue source, but like public facilities, for instance, right? Capital improvement money can be used for the same thing public facilities can. You know, but it's that whole circle where there's overlap and so a lot of these can be used together anyway.
Right. That's true.
So it's gonna look a little different, a little getting used to, and he's still tweaking this a little bit, but like mowing contract, that's spent out of conservation trust fund. So might wanna put.
No, that would have been out of, because mowing contract, conservation trust is still separate.
Okay, use tax, sorry, use tax. So we might, just for tracking purpose, put use tax mowing contract or something. I mean, just so we know where it's coming out of.
Well, if you're linking it,
If it's all being linked.
Yeah, we can.
but like a cheat sheet for you, and well, enough too.
It's gonna take me a full year to get used to it.
Yeah, so really this is meant to be, before going too far and nailing this thing down, I at least wanted to know that it was gonna be a viable object, and we can certainly refine.
That's always been one of my frustrations looking at governmental accounting.
Yeah, it's a little different, because we have special revenue, and the enterprise funds have to stay separate. So if we go to the overall picture, the library fund's still the same.
Actually, with this one, we're proposing adding adding departments into the library fund. So you see the library revenues, and then you have Gilchrist expenditures,
Oh, yeah.
Platteville expenditures.
Also, it's all one fund.
So it's, right, so you're bringing the libraries into one fund with two departments.
Okay.
Platteville Library, Gilchrist Library. Gotcha.
And then you can still track and see what you're spending on each, but they have the same revenue, right?
Right.
If they need money, one gives to the other, and it all comes from the library district anyway.
And your cemetery separate, as it is now.
But it does include the Veterans Memorial, because that's
Veterans
sitting
Memorial.
in the cemetery. So we've got up there at the top, if you go to the revenues, please. So right there, the donations, that was your Veterans Memorial's donations. And then the interest income was that made on it. Well, there hasn't been donations in a while, the memorial's fully built. If something needs to be done on it, general fund can always transfer money over to help it out. Or the cemetery can pick it up if it needs to, but it's living out there anyway.
So on the expenditures.
Then you just have, there's your bottom line expenditure where it says Veterans Memorial as well as that.
So two funds into one.
So, you know, instead of having a whole other fund to track, it really gets, and really Devin's the one that's gonna save a lot of the effort on there with the AP entry. I mean, she's having to split up like electric bills into all these different things.
Yes.
And then,
Or like the attorney's bill, or, yeah.
Conservation trust.
this is unchanged.
Unchanged by statute, can't mess with it. Law enforcement will be separate.
So with this one, we took the, this is the surcharge, as well as the impact fees that are.
Police impact fee.
Yeah, the police impact. So we eliminated the police impact fee fund. It's still collecting its impact fee, as you can see right here.
Right.
It's just, this way, the police department as well as the board can see exactly how much money they have between them without having to get out a calculator.
So much nicer and easier to read.
Yes, it is, holy smokes.
Then your police facilities is the expenditure out of your police impact fee, which we budget normally. When we build a new PD, that will probably like this one now. Probably. Harvest Daze.
Untouched.
Untouched because it's donation based.
What ticket's not out of it?
What's that?
Tickets are in the general fund.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing.
So the fines, there's multiple structures to a ticket. There's fines and there's a surcharge. The surcharge goes to the law enforcement fund. The fines go to the general fund.
So
You
your
don't get to keep all the money you make? What?
I know.
Yeah, well, his salaries come out of the general fund too, though, so.
Like this morning, I applaud the PD, they're gonna break the all-time revenue, probably hit 100,000, 95,000. That only helps offset a 650,000 expenditure revenue. But your general fund won't change. So we're only talking about special revenue, capital improvement, fund type funds, and then your water, sewer, and the one we just talked about. So we'll go from 19 to what, 10?
9 or 10, yeah, it's gonna be 10, I think. It eliminates about half of them.
Holy smokes.
And then your financials will go from 75 pages down to about 30.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Right, because that's been the hardest thing about it, is going through it. I know even from my standpoint, I deal with finances and accounting and financials, governmental accounting every single day, all day. And it still gets hard to fully analyze the 76-page financial statements on a monthly basis. So I can hardly imagine what you guys are trying to go through, looking at that and preparing to use it in a format.
So that's what we're kind of looking at, and even though we just switched from Cassell to Assist, now we want to do this, we're going to have to make that conversion. I know Mary's really excited about it.
Yeah, that needs new account numbers too, doesn't it?
What's that?
And new account numbers and everything?
Yeah, this is probably a better discussion about 6 months ago, but we're here now, so we're not gonna let that stop us.
Right, okay.
But it'll just mean changing a few object codes and getting that in there, and I think it's all doable.
I think when what we're looking at is putting this out as a 2020 budget format.
Oh.
What the other part we need too is then we have to close the other funds and make those transfers into the capital improvement.
Yeah. So that'll be behind the scenes, and then Dave has to sit down with Mary and Deb, the front office staff, and go over new account numbers and so on and so forth. So it's going to take some time. Are you blowing back here, Mary?
I heard that all the way over here.
It's like, oh,
We know why Devin's going on leave now.
I know.
She's gonna come back and absolutely repeat me.
She knows about this, right?
Oh,
Oh,
no, not really.
Why waste the surprise?
No, we don't wanna, no.
I mean, ultimately though, this helps her a lot, and she really just enters it based on the coding given
Yeah.
to her.
Sure.
And that coding is pulled out. This becomes the perfect time because of the new budget, right?
Yeah.
We haven't closed it out, we'll need to do a formal resolution to shut those down.
Yep.
But we'll come to you with numbers, if that's what you guys wanna do. I'll come to with numbers and a plan as to how to shut those down and do all that. And we'll just have the 2020 budget take over, and that's the way it's gonna be going forward.
Because you guys, pretty much both formats, the current one and then you're gonna build a new one.
Just make it bigger like this.
Yeah, that would be nice, huh? What I'm going down is the end of the general fund, leading into my next conversation. Almost there. There we go. Alright, so I want you to focus on these line items down here at the bottom. Last year, we established a balanced budget where we had around 85,000 revenues over expenditures. What you see in 2020 is just over $5,000. The reason that's $5,000 is we dipped in reserves by $250,000 in the Streets and Highways Fund to help with the rounds out of the project. So I want to point this out that without dipping into reserves, the general fund is balanced with revenues over expenditures by $250,000 going into 2020. So I feel pretty pleased about that. But I keep a balanced positive number in the general fund. That's why I dipped in by $250,000. I can dip in up to 1.7 million if I wanted to, if we wanted to, but I don't want to do that. So I wanted to point that out as we lead into the staffing and the conversation, because I know, like Adrian and I have been talking about, we want to make sure there's revenues over expenditures. We want to make sure we have a balanced budget. So my point is, we definitely have a balanced budget by $250,000, but we're going to dip into reserves to do a special project, which is roads out. So, with that being said, I'm going to go into my staffing proposal. What I did this last week is I spent some time looking at budget numbers and statistics. So the police department, basically for the last 15 years, it's been the same. Back in 04 Platteville, according to the upstate Colorado, I use the U.S. Census, at 2,674 people, our residents, as of this year, 3,003, increase of 329 residents. In 2011, this is kind of chronological. We did a flagpole annexation of 85 to 60.
That was in 2011. That was 2017. The flagpole annexation?
That was another one.
Oh.
So in 2011, we flagpole north
Okay.
to pick up
The different one, sorry.
the Facade Buster, which is 147 acres of industrial property, which Noble now bought at 60 and 38. And then later that year, we went down 38 to the east end, west end, and picked up a 10-acre parcel of Hofstadter. So that's how we picked up all of Town of 38. The totality is about 7 miles. In 13, Gilchrist decided to disband their police department. The population as of this year is 1,200 people. And they contract us, and currently this year they pay us $126,993 for police services. That's 40 hours of patrol time a week plus emergency calls as needed. Then in 16, we did the other two annexations, 6.5 miles to 3.5 miles to St. Vrain, 3 miles south to 85. So we picked up a lot of highway miles in the last 6 years. Then in 16, the school district decided they wanted SROs, so we hired 2 officers, and the school district pays us $161,754 as of this year for SRO services. So to kind of give you a snapshot, in 2013, the police budget was $578,882. It's currently $661,085, an increase of $1,000, 6 years difference. You throw the Gilchrist and the SRO contracts, we've actually saved money. It's actually $45,690 less than it was 6 years ago, because it's being offset by Gilchrist and the school district. And the school district contract pays enough for Matt and Ian all year round, and then $30,000 more for basic vehicles and equipment. So we're doing well as far as our contracts. So what I'm proposing is, and you already know this probably, I'd like to promote Carl to hire an 8th officer, because when we did pick up Gilchrist in 2013, we picked up their last officer, so we had 8 officers to help provide that Gilchrist service. When that officer left, we never replaced it. We just said we just do with what we got. I think the budget is stable enough to where I can't forecast the future, but I'd like to ask the board to consider hiring another full-time patrol officer, or whatever Carl needs, mostly in his PD. Estimated cost about $55,000 total. You're looking at a basic salary and then become the benefits and retirement. So that's my first proposal.
And the 8th officer would help keep Carl off.
Yep. 8 officer would be in rotation. We still have 2 SROs, and then we have the code official and Carrie as police clerk. So there'll be 12 technically in the PD after this.
Including Terry?
Yep. 10 sworn officers, 2 SROs, 8 staff, including Carl, and then 2 non-officers. Public Works, same scenario. This hasn't changed in 15, 20 years. We've always had 5, director, foreman, 3 maintenance. Over the years though, we've just picked up more and more and more, a lot more maintenance, roads. We do things differently than we did 15 years ago. I can tell you stories of coming to work and Public Works making burritos until 9 o'clock before they went to work and so on and so forth. That's all changed. I come to work at 7:30, I can't find anybody except David when he rolls in. They're gone. They're out in the streets. They're doing this thing. So it makes me pretty happy. I'm recommending, earlier this year, we pulled back the former employee 24 hours a week to help off, because we had 1 gone. He's now back, and now we have a foreman gone. I like the board to consider at least a part-time, year-round employee, possibly seasonal, but we can keep them busy in the wintertime. It wouldn't be a big hit on the budget. This would be a non-benefit position. This would be 24 hours a week, 3 days a week. There's a lot more in the summer, especially I like Public Works to do. David knows that, with mowing and maintenance, that we just don't have time to do.
That be in lieu of the RSL contract or in addition to?
What's that?
Is this to replace the rock solid contract?
Nope.
This is additional mowing.
This is additional. This is not mowing parks, this is ditches and right-of-ways.
Ditch on
Goodrich, on Division, down 32 and a half, down 38 we have to maintain. We do 85 through town if we can, but we don't have the staff to do that. So those are the things, those are the specific mowing projects. It's non-park, non-cemetery projects I'm looking at doing. And like we've talked about for years, we need somebody to do water maintenance, to turn valves and make sure they work, just to keep replacing water meters, I mean, things like that. And with the new sewer lagoon going online and me trying to talk David into, taking his license, he's gonna have less time to manage that, so a lot of this maintenance will probably go on the foreman's responsibility. So that's kind of where I'm leading with that. So it's a change in the PD and then, in a way, a bigger change in public works depending on how those job assignments get shifted. So,
Will this position be subject to full-time, or what's the difference? I mean, is it solid enough to make it a full-time position? Because, like it mentioned, you got one employee back, and now you've got a foreman coming. You know,
we can get by, and I don't wanna get the cart before the horse, because if David is willing to do this, and I'm talking like he's not here, but he's right here, then I would want to put this position full-time, but we're not there yet. I wanna be
But it
conservative and
is-
build up to that point.
it isn't thought to put it full-time eventually.
Yeah. My priority, to be honest with you, is a PD full-time in 2020 and do part-time in public works. Because there's always a question of, do you really need that staff in the winter time? But in reality, just management staffing, that's when the guys wanna go on vacation, go hunting, take time off, so you're short-handed. And then when do your water breaks usually occur? In the winter time. Exactly. And there's jobs that David can't send out, you know, like water rereads or changing out meters. You can't send one guy out there to do that, especially if the meter's in someone's home. You have to have two, it's a safety issue, that's a liability. So.
I mean, we've got, right now, if I may, we've got 283 older meters in town. They're radio read meters, but they are somewhere between 4 and 8 years past the 10-year shelf life that they were supposed to have at that time. So we've got, and that amount of money is 3 years worth of the $25,000 budget that we put into the water fund each year for meters, to buy those. But over 100 of those are in Rogers Farm, which I'm not gonna get into the details of exactly why, but my predecessors did not require meter pits. They let them put them in the basements. So that's what Tori's referring to, where we've gotta have, for liability reasons and for safety reasons, we've gotta have at least 2 individuals to go to those homes. Technically, usually a water meter change out is a one-guy deal, but we can't have somebody go and be in somebody's home and then say that, you know, we tracked a bunch of mud, or we stole something while we were in the basement, or we this or we that, without having a couple of people there to verify kind of what's going on.
And that's still an accusation.
So,
So police and public works are our focus. The front office, I may eat my words on this, we're okay right now. We've always had 5 in the front office. Back in 16, when the finance director position was dissolved and we started contracting with David Green, we still maintain the 5 positions basically. And David's our accountant. So we have a lot of clerks. We got town clerk, deputy clerk, utility clerk, finance clerk, and then me. I don't really count, but those 4 do the work in the front office. So. Manager clerk. Yep. Actually, my first year here, the mayor at the time wanted me to partner with him to make the manager, office manager, and go to the mayor form of government. And he got mad at me because I said no, because mayors aren't here every day and you can't manage government. So no changes in 2020. Again, going back to last night's conversation, if we make changes in retail revenue, then that's going to be another conversation we're going to have, but not to that point. Janet and the rec and seniors, she just needs to fill that coordinator position, still pending. Hire someone pretty good in the seasonal, take care of the ball fields. That's a big priority. I know Gordon came back from vacation and took down your batting cage nets and some maintenance stuff, but I call Gordon kind of the ball field advisor, because he won't not advise without the ball fields. He's gonna let Janet know where he thinks, and that's good, because part of the ball fields for a long time. So that's more seasonal. As programs go, as we'll see how it goes in the next few years, I mean, things may change as far as staffing, but right now I think we're fine. And lastly, kind of mentioned previously, the last night before, right now, Carl and David have take-home vehicles, they're directors. We have something big happen, they have to respond immediately. Looking at take-home vehicle program for duty officers while they're on duty. Carl and I talked about this today, and this is something we want to think about more. Not quite sure we want to do this quite yet, because if we did, if we hire an 8th officer, we won't have no vehicles. We have 7 vehicles. And should SROs be able to take cars home because they're never called out for emergencies? So those are still kinks we need to work through, but I want to throw that out there as a possibility. In public works though, I think the on-call public works person during his, was it Friday through Thursday, I think they should be able to take a vehicle home if they have a personal vehicle that they can drive around otherwise. Because they get called out actually quite a bit. I mean, they get $50 a week to be on call, whoopie-doo. I mean, that it helps, but being able to respond, like David, that one time when he was on call covering for Q, 9 o'clock at night, I see lights flashing, I go out, and my neighbor, 2 houses down, had a sewer issue. Well, David had his truck in his driveway, he just drove straight from home. Well, our guy had to drive to the shop, warm things up, open the doors, and it's a delay. So I think Public Works definitely, during their week, call out just that guy, take home a vehicle, and I think it's more justified. So that's my proposal for the take-home program. Janet, no car for you yet, sorry.
That's what I just said,
The
that
bus.
extra, well, no, I said that extra public works truck that they don't want, I'll take that as a take-home vehicle, and then when something happens.
How
and I
are you
have
at
to
driving
go
a
back-
backhoe?
I tell ya, the bus scares me.
The grader,
You can take the back
the
roads.
grader. 32 and a half, 34.
I was gonna say, I could probably get here a lot easier, and if people would stay out of my way.
Sure enough. Or you just push them out of the way.
How many more miles are you considering would be added to our, like, especially the police cars?
Public Works not so much, looking at the budget today, and it would add fuel cost, possibly maintenance cost.
How far is it for this police officer?
That's another thing is, you know, like Dave and Carl, they have to be within a 30-mile response radius. It would be the same for the officers.
So if
Can't
they-
drive to southern Denver.
If they live outside that, then they can't take it home, or we can
I
make
don't-
that requirement?
I think it's a fair requirement that you have to live within a certain range of Platteville.
To take it home.
Because in all honesty, you're taking it home as emergency response vehicles to come back. And if you're that far away, what's practically you're gonna be able to respond quickly? You're not going to. And the other restriction for police that I have is they have to be secure on their private property or an enclosed structure. No open public parking lots, no street parking. I just don't want that. You hear horror stories of cop cars being broken into. Not like it won't be in the driveway, but even like the Hudson officer that lives in Rogers Farm, he parks in his driveway. Public Works, not so much. You know, kids don't want to break Public Works cars open. Police, yes they do. Just because they're police cars.
Didn't we allow this before?
We allowed, in the police department, the detective and sergeant had take-home cars years ago.
And I had one when I was a sergeant and lieutenant, so yeah, it was only supervisors in the past.
Okay.
And if an officer, like Brad Baker used to live here, he lived in town, technically in the county, he lived on the Camp Farm property across the division from the elementary school, I let him take one home for a while. And that's always been our rule, I always told the officers, if you're willing to live in Platteville, I think you should take a car home on your work week. But that's hard for people to do. People are set in their ways and they have their properties, and I'm not requiring that, obviously. I'm the only employee that's required to live in the Platteville urban growth boundary.
This is a very deep discussion, but that 47,000, can you hire an officer for that amount of money?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what we're paying our cops right now.
Yeah. That's low.
That's low.
The job that we're asking them to do and the amount of money that they're getting paid, that blows my mind.
We're starting guys off about $4 an hour less than other small towns in Public Works, and probably about $5 to $6 an hour less than police. When we have.
I respect Public Works, but you're not facing the.
We don't put a target on our chest every day.
Right,
No.
no.
So this is, and earlier this year, we found out, I was talking to Carl Harvest and worrying about this as well, and Carl and I talked about it, my Carl. Loveland is taking lateral transfers, and they're giving a $12,000 one-time bonus, plus the increase in pay.
Oh.
I mean, that's crazy what they're doing, crazy. So I'm kind of shooting for the moon this year. I'm asking for large capital projects to be done. I think our budget's good to do so, dip into the reserves a little bit. As I showed you a little bit ago, our general fund revenues are quite well compared to our operations expenditures. I don't want this proposal to take away from 2020 raise considerations. I want this to be a staffing increase, and then for you to consider your social security increase or your cost of living increase.
So that's Andrew.
Yep, I am. I'm shooting for the moon this year, people. I don't want this to be, if it's going to affect raises for my current staff, I say, you know, let's hold off on this another year. So I need to keep who I have right now. But I think we can do both. And I'm still trying to be conservative, but I think we've been talking about this since I was chief my first year, and I've always heard from the board, we don't have the money. We have the money right now.
Yeah.
And my goal is to maintain the revenues coming in, to maintain my proposals, and I know I have to do that.
And we're gonna get you more revenues with that 7-Eleven coming in.
7-Eleven, I haven't done the numbers yet, but once it's operational, I think with the food component, it'll compete with the Shell gas station in a different capacity. It'll have more resident or more non-commercial vehicles, because it's not a truck place, it's more, but it's gonna, in the morning, both those gas stations are full.
And they're hard to get into.
And they're hard to get into. I think we have enough traffic volume in the morning and after hours. 7-Eleven will be packed. Plus they have the regular taco food component.
Before we had the Gilchrist and the SRO, full staff was 7 officers and a chief.
With the chief.
7 officers with the chief.
When I came in 04, it was me, Sarge, and 5 officers.
Okay.
And that's what Carl has now, him, 2 corporals, and 4 officers.
So we added 3 positions and no officers. Right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Bothered me at the time, it still bothers me now.
So low.
But do you still hear a large swath of people complain that we have too much police in this town?
Actually,
Well,
not heard
no,
that
they
at
see
all.
the cars parked out there.
I hear the cars, but yeah, I don't hear about police. I'm only hearing the.
They're never around.
They're never around.
Interesting enough, it's usually when they're going home at night, and the SROs are parked, they've gone home, and we have, Carl's gone home, we have 2 guys on, so we have 5 cars in the parking lot. I mean, that's reality, I get that. Come 5 o'clock, there's 5 cars in the parking lot, unless it's where Mike's Auto, getting his oil change or whatever. But I tell you what, I also watch next door and see, and hear the hubbub, you know, it's like, where's the cops at? They should be out there writing tickets.
That's all I hear. I don't hear anything about too much crime, too many police officers. I've only heard 2 people ever say that, ever.
Well, and like Carlos had a deal with, somebody gets hurt, or 2 get hurt, or somebody leaves and goes, then he's short-staffed, and then it's him working the shifts for a month, and then he's got FTO going on, and so he's never off shift, you know. Maybe for a couple weeks you are, and then you're back on shift again because you gotta cover for something that's happening. So that would give you that staffing that you actually need to be productive.
And Carl and I talked about this, in the summertime when the SROs are on the streets, we're fully staffed, but then the other officers won't take vacation.
Right.
And the SROs won't take vacation. And it's all part of staffing management. You're always gotta plan on somebody being gone for an injury, a vacation, a leave. And when you're full, it's like, it's great, you get some more work done.
Sucked up by Loveland's $12,000 sign-on bonus.
Well, that it's a reality that we have to plan on having a vacancy every year in the PD, every single year. So we are never 7 officers, rarely are we 7 officers. We've had a good run the last, what, year? Since March, since Stephen came. So not quite a year.
Well, Troy, I don't have a problem with your
Well, and
proposal. I would
even
support that.
Your office
Yeah,
is there, gonna go.
I have no problem with adding a police officer.
Larry, what do you think?
I agree, I think it's time. The money's there.
What about part-time with work staff?
I support it.
I'll fill out the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will too.
In that case.
I work part-time. Dave?
I don't know.
I can fix water mains, and I can meters, and I can go mow some weeds, scuba diving, I would love to do that, I'm retired, I can do that.
Troy, can you give me the 10,000-foot overview, and maybe Carl, you can elaborate a little bit? And I'm not trying to dive back into the marijuana discussion, but in my research, a lot of the towns that I was calling that have legal marijuana around here don't even have their own police force. They use the Laramie County or the Wells County Sheriff to do their policing. How is it that towns that are larger than us are able to do that? Just Berkeley, basically.
Well, that was a committee decision because of what the state had. I mean, they had a pretty large home police agency that had nothing to do with marijuana, they just had some.
Right.
Corruption.
Yeah.
And they, but I think, I'm not sure about Larimer County's contract, but I think there's at least 3 officers or deputies that reside there at all times. And that, you know, and that kind of help offsets not having the PD. I don't know all the details of that. I know Well County a few years ago, some sheriff range said no more contract.
No more contract,
So
that's why.
Hudson and Meade and
Physically
Garden
forced.
City,
Forces.
they were forced to.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
know,
can tell you, from Meade's standpoint, the quality of service that you got from Weld County when they were our law enforcement was awful.
I'm sure. Again, yeah, I'm not proposing to go that route, I'm just trying to understand the situation.
yeah,
Troy, if I may, I've got quite a few friends with Larimer County, and I kind of know some of the inside workings there, and Berthoud, they did have the big scandal with the PD, so the community felt more comfortable, and I believe it's 4 full-time officers with Larimer County that Berthoud pays Larimer County to have reside in Berthoud. Wellington does the same thing, but Severance was just looking at getting rid of their PD, and considered getting rid of their PD. And a week later, the board decided, no, I guess we'll keep the PD after they talked to Larimer County and found out how expensive that was gonna be to have Larimer County go ahead and staff that. And then, I mean, the police agencies, I have a lot, my brother's in law enforcement, there has been, and I hear a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. Larimer County just hired 17 new jail depus, and they lost 19 since the last hiring. So they're losing ground even though they just hired 17 new people.
It's very competitive out there, every agency's looking for people.
You know, Severance is hiring at 20% higher than any other agency in the area right now, just trying to draw officers.
Severance is growing by 17,000 rooftops, aren't they? In 2020, 17,000.
you know, like, I haven't done the police salary study for a while, but I believe last year Tim, the police chief alone, made more than any manager along the 85 corridor except Greeley now. I mean, that's how much they're paying. And I don't know what they're making. I don't know. It's just, well, it's just money. It's about money. I mean, they got a lot of revenue coming in. You know, that's just, we're not that way, not yet. So that bottom number in the budget will go up accordingly, and I'll work with David Green on making those adjustments in the next draft, and we'll get that to you in your packet for the 19th regular meeting so you can see those numbers. Because this budget will be up for adoption by you on Tuesday, December 3rd. The way it works out, it means in December the 3rd to the 20th by statute, I have to have it submitted about the 15th of December. I think that's the Dole bill, I just went to Dole.
Mill levy.
Mill levy, yeah. And I also sent to Dole too. So with that, otherwise I know we come to him on the topic about salaries and wages. I know health insurance went up 4.4%. We had some been built into the budget. The board's just, approved the staffing, we'll put that to the budget for police and public works. So I'm up to you, I don't really have,
You don't have any?
well, to me, it's always either a percentage increase or an adjustment increase. I mean, like you indicated, police officers, you know, that's an average police officer, 47,000. You know, and you go to list out, they're about 57, maybe 60, I'm not sure where they go.
We just bumped up to 65, didn't we?
Yeah, 65 is, Meade has 65 and their officers all have taken over. So it's competitive, but I still have to look at the bottom line of the budget, going back to that, you know, about this year, about 250,000 revenue or expenditure for dipping into that. This will increase it another probably 80,000, just by the staffing issue. With the officer, part-time public works, probably 70. We've done different things across the board. We've done a percent across the board. Everybody gets the same. Last year we did the fixed social security adjustment with the crucial merit that they had earned, which I think my department is like because it gives them, because not every employee's the same.
Right, they get,
Everybody gets the basic social security, but the harder working ones, or the ones that do more work, not naming anybody, they'll get the max, while other ones like, you know what, you need to pick it up. It's an incentive, that's why it's a merit. Some years, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, Adrian, we gave just a flat amount across the board, like $1 an hour raise for everybody. I think we did for police and public works. You know, even if we do 4 or 5%, that's not gonna get them close to competitive to where the other agencies are. I mean, but how much do we want to expand the budget this year? That's the question I have for you. How comfortable are you?
With the incentive of having a police take-home vehicle and a foreman of a vehicle to take home.
That's true.
What's the projected increase on having those? Like maintenance, gas?
Who's gonna buy another car, probably?
Right now, we budget 18,000 for fuel. And the
Right
TV.
now, that's without the take-home.
That's without take-home cars. I have to live it with a year with Carl to see how these cars run, but every other agency I've talked to that have take-home vehicles, like the cars are treated much better.
Right.
And they take their personal cars basically, not in reality, but they treat them like that. There'll be more fuel costs, no doubt. That's why we have to restrict on how far they can live away in order to qualify for a take-home car.
And I can
Well, I guess
honestly
I'm putting-
say that everybody lives, with the exception of 1 or 2, they all live around a half an hour-ish, maybe a little less away. And were we talking about a take-home car, even theirs on the weekend, maybe have one for each every officer, just in their work week?
no,
Just work
that's what
week.
I was just gonna ask.
Just work
about,
week.
yeah.
But basically, all the cars, like Carl and I talked about, right now the cars have what's called downtime, where the engines are pulled off, they're not being run. This way, because you got squad A and B, those cars will be running every single day.
Every single day.
Never
and
sit.
We have a kind of a newer fleet, I guess you could say, so the maintenance and repairs we've had on these have been relatively low over the years. We've been way under budget on that line item because we have newer cars. If we take them home, it's gonna be more wear and tear, have to replace the tires more often, just everything with running that car every single day. So I think it may go up quite a little bit, just running these cars every day.
Well, I guess my thought is, okay, you have the increase of wear and tear on the vehicle, more maintenance, gas, but giving the officers the incentive as well as maybe a percentage increase,
Like
for
a social
pay.
security.
With that, I mean, rather than go say, what were you saying, 3%? possibly increase,
Typically, we look at 3 or 4%.
3 or 4%, so
With merit total.
with merit, so maybe do, the 3, I mean, on the low end, like you said, 3 to 4, so stay at 3 plus a vehicle. That's a percent.
Yeah,
Would that be,
projected COLA is gonna be 1.6%.
Yeah, 1.6 is what we're looking at. For COLA.
And just from the outside looking in with the guys, I mean, if we really wanna work on retention, you guys are hitting the sweet spot, just for what it's worth.
Which
What,
one,
the
the cars or?
take-home
The cars.
Right, well, they would all love a take-home car, because those who live a half an hour, just a year to go to work and back, I mean, that's gonna save, I mean, you can look at that like a raise, they're gonna save that in
Exactly.
gas, and so just say a couple $1,000 a year raise just in gas.
right,
And then you add in the wear and tear on the car and all that, I mean,
But
they
they're-
would be very good shape with
if
that.
they're taking care of the vehicles, and you do like vehicle inspections, I'm sure.
Yep,
And say, look, say if officer is just not taking care of the vehicle,
Yeah, it's not a right, it's a privilege.
yeah, maybe revoke that privilege and say, look, you can't take the vehicle home anymore because you're not taking care of it like the rest of them. We're up to our standards. But just an incentive to have those vehicles plus a large increase in pay, but because you're saving money, like you said, on gas, you're not wear and tearing your own vehicle. They're maintaining the vehicles better, hopefully taking care of them, because they're office, in my opinion. That's how I treat my company vehicles.
Pretty much.
So, I don't know, I guess maybe the balance, it would kind of end up being a wash maybe with the
I think
marginal pay increase with the, instead of having a take-home vehicle, rather than a large pay increase and no take-home vehicle.
Definitely for the police department, just focus on them right now. I mean, if all the officers have a take-home vehicle, if you throw in the SROs, then that would take every car we have. And during their work week, they could take vehicles home, obviously. And they'd be sitting here on the weekends being available for the weekend officers if they need to stay. But, it makes me a little nervous that if a car goes down, who's without a vehicle? You know, that's the only thing, you know, that's just reality.
Right, well, that, and, I think it's very important, if we have this, that you guys would maybe consider us replacing a car every other year or
It has
every
to.
year,
You have to
because this
replace
is
the car.
gonna wear
I
out the
think you
car.
got that in the plan, didn't you?
Yeah, we do, in the LE equipment training. As long as you guys write tickets, you're gonna have money. I mean,
Well, and, well, no,
There's the
and,
other incentive, you keep writing tickets, you get new cars, we're on.
well, and,
And maybe if you can give something to the rec department, hold it or something.
no, and if you guys authorize us another officer, then we're just gonna be saturating the highways and we're gonna be hitting the road that much more, so expect the numbers to rise this upcoming year. In part of having this other officer too, which is gonna help with those numbers, what I'm saying.
Covered shifts all the time.
Insurance. Yeah, what's it gonna be the insurance?
Well, it was, when we talked about that when David and Carl had started taking take-home vehicles, I don't think service insurance rates are gonna change if there's a policy where they have to track their miles. No?
No,
What?
I was told take-home vehicle drivers, as long as they're only driven for work-related purposes,
Yeah,
are fine.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
If they stop at a drive-through restaurant on the way home, then that stops and they have to carry a rider. It's what they recommend, because if in fact they go to, Consumers, and somebody rear ends the vehicle, that CIRSA doesn't have to pay for that.
How would that work if there was an accident on the way home? They're not actually at work, like me, I mean, if I'm on the way home, I'm not at work anymore. Am I at work though?
If you're
According
going
to
straight
CIRSA?
home, not stopping, you're fine.
Right.
But he's saying if there was an accident, some car hit him at an intersection as he's walking on his way home.
That's covered, I had that happen 2 years ago. I had somebody hit a patch of ice and rear end the back of the work truck on my way home. It was I had to do some explaining for where I was because there was another accident that they had detoured me off the normal route home, so why was I clear over on 85 in LaSalle?
So I guess you'd have to fill up here in Platteville before you went home, so you didn't fill up somewhere outside of town.
Oh, I
For
think
gas,
the
or
right
if you had to use a
express
restroom
card
break
you
or
use
something
it.
like that, this seems kinda great, but.
Plus, if you have your car insurance, I mean, I'm covered in any car I drive in, right, 'cause I carry car insurance, I carry insurance on myself, so wouldn't that be the same thing for this, what we're talking about, their personal insurance would take up the slack?
Well, this is part of the conversation before, that if they were taking detours and there's an accident, then their personal insurance would be liable, so they would get,
We just have to require them to carry a personal insurance policy.
and I don't know what that costs, if that's the case, otherwise they just don't stop.
Everybody has to have an insurance policy, or they can't drive.
Right, to drive a car.
Yeah, but that's not all the time. If you're driving this different car every day that you work, that's like a second car.
So like, we rent out a car at work, or rent out a car, and I take their insurance, they get in an accident in my car, their insurance pays it. They're paid, they pay number one.
I think we need to dig this a little further.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know,
We
I
should
don't know the
probably
answers to
just
that.
ask Sursa before there's that many cars.
That's something we'll work on, Mary.
Okay.
Well, I was just throwing that idea out there before we got into the depth of insurance, just for an option for incentive and,
Yeah.
so. The same thing, I wasn't just specifically focused on the police, but also your former public works too, so.
Larry, do you have anything for raises?
I do. I'd kinda like to redirect some of this conversation. Last year, we provided a 1.6 cost of living to go along with the social security number, and then added another 2.4 for the department heads to distribute merit-based pay raises. In addition to that, this year, I would be in favor of these take-home cars for the police department. Yes, it's more gas. Yes, we can figure out what the insurance implications are. That's just paperwork and research. But it adds, or it makes up for some of the shortage in the salaries that we can't pay or haven't been able to pay in previous years. It doesn't close the gap with other towns surrounding us. I don't know that that's within reach in 1 year. But it creates a tax-free benefit, shall we say, to the officers. They're not paying their own gasoline to commute to work. It's what we can do. If it means we gotta buy an additional police car more frequently, so be it. So they would get, and I'm just, I know this is getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but say for the example that we duplicate last year's pay increase percentages, and then the police department would get that plus the take-home cars.
And
That's
Public Works would, the one on call would get their vehicle as well.
right.
That would be every 5 weeks though. They rotate 5 weeks, not every 4 weeks, 4 weeks, sorry.
Right, but they're the ones that are providing the on-call service.
Sure.
And so it seems fitting that they could be driving a company car, if you will. That's all I would have to say, just to wrap up this particular question of the police cars and the pay raises, because I know that's gonna be part of the discussion at some point in time. It is now.
Thank you.
Troy, we had talked about this last year, potentially establishing a salary policy.
Yep.
You know, based on, if you pull the social security marker, whatever,
Increase
inflation
revenue.
marker, and just set it up where we can have that, we lean on, you say, okay, the policy says we're gonna do this, and then
We don't have to.
about every year.
Right, the discussion is much less,
It's in draft, it's being drafted right now, it'll be in front of the board on the 19th in 2 weeks. And what's being based upon is, based upon revenues over expenditures, stable budget, that all the employees across the board would receive the COLA based upon Social Security Administration. You know, whatever that may be, 1.6, 2.8. Years ago it was like 3 or something, I think.
Quite a number of years ago, yeah.
Many years ago. And then the board has the discretion of capping that out with additional merit of up to, say it's 1.6, so say, well, we'll give 1.6 and then another, like Larry said, 2.4 that you can earn on your evaluation. That's coming in front of the board on the 19th. And it's all budget driven though. You have to have a balanced budget to get that.
Yeah, you want an escape clause, if you will.
Sure.
You know, you don't wanna write a policy that says, you're gonna get 5% a year from now, forever. Because the revenues may not be able to justify that.
Right, there's no increase in revenues.
and obviously the board, at their pleasure to overturn the policy.
It's a policy,
whenever they see fit.
it's not a code.
Right,
or
it
it's not
can be modified at any time, really, I mean, but.
A new board could come in and say, no, we don't like this, I think scrape it. You know, so.
I do think that would be a good idea.
It is.
You give it some consistency for your employees, your staff as well, and a little bit of an expectation of what they, you know.
Well, it
Some
puts,
certainty, I guess, you know.
the way I look at it, it puts pressure to perform. I mean, I gotta help, you know, find more revenue, make sure the department heads not to overspend. I mean, we maintain a balanced budget isn't just one or two things, it's the whole picture. Hopefully we don't have
To
a,
get water from.
yeah, I hear you,
Just saying.
I hear you. Wastewater, water, marijuana, we got all kinds of stuff talking
You
about.
know, only smoking marijuana would create more water.
And everybody's dehydrated.
So what I hear is the police take home vehicle consideration and then up to 4%, which is a mix between merit and cost of living.
1.6 and 2.4.
Okay, so 4.
Yeah, or, I'm sure that Mr. Green can tell us what the percentage increase in revenue was from one year to another, and we could just borrow that number.
Percentage increase in revenue. All revenues or?
I can tell you last 2 years real quick.
Well,
Not percentage.
Sure.
though.
Yes, all revenue.
Whichever one you got, tell us.
Go to the library.
The sales taxes.
Yeah, let's look
are-
at library numbers.
So the problem with that is that sales taxes have been so all over the place.
as our severance tax.
As our severance taxes, yeah. And so we certainly can't count on those severance taxes to be coming in next year. And they're pretty healthy this year.
You also have to look at a trend.
So what I'm saying is like sales taxes dropped down. Heck, they've been crazy this year as far as not even being able to predict. I think they're 174,000
Yep.
last month. Wow. And at one point they were down to like 40, I think, so they're everywhere. But yeah,
I would suggest that if the board had that information as of, say, September 1st of every year.
An estimate?
Yeah. And then prior to the budget study sessions, they could make it a more informed decision based on the revenues that at that point are only, 30 days back.
I love that idea.
At that point, you've got 3/4 of your annual revenues already come in on September 30th, and the budget studies are gonna, in October. You've got a pretty good, you could base it on 3/4 of the year.
Yeah. Or you could take the last quarter of the previous year and make that an entire year.
Right.
I love
This
it.
based for a salary discussion or just for a revenue?
For a salary.
They, for salary increases, changes.
Base your salary increases on.
I mean, look,
projected revenue.
I thought we were going to base it on a COLA score, so what that is.
Well, it's a combined.
Right now, we don't
cost of
have
living.
any information to go off of to pick a number out of the sky. We're picking an uneducated number out of the sky. Larry's just suggesting that maybe we get a little more education by September 30th, right?
Yeah, you would have the,
We have up-to-date revenues as of Yeah, last
But
week.
if we're
they
given a
did.
percent all in one,
Yeah.
just here's the increase.
And percent-wise, I mean, I'm not gonna do this in my head, I mean, David Green can, but we budgeted 2.566 million, we're anticipating roughly 3.1 million in projected revenue. We're currently at 2.7, so what is that, 20%, 30%? I mean, I don't know.
Right, I hear what you're saying, that's right, you know, but for the purpose of the discussion of merit pay increase, that portion of the pay increases. If you have the previous 12 months revenue change in your hand at the budget study sessions in October, you've got a percentage number right in front
For
of
the merit portion.
What if
Yeah.
you looked at even valuation or property taxes, as those are much more representative of what's going on in town rather than, so certainly, like, the issue I see there, sales taxes can be so all over the place depending on what oil and gas is doing, and there's so many things we can't predict, whereas valuation and property taxes are gonna be kind of representative.
Good point. The economical status of it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Now, I get they only value every other year, but things change in there, housing is built, and I think it's a lot more stable thing, and we get those in August, and we can figure those out. And then your property tax,
numbers to.
your property taxes are probably the biggest revenue inside of your general fund anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, property and sales right now are pretty neck and neck. Property's consistent, it has always been. The sales tax goes down, but so can property tax, right? I mean, there's a lag with property tax. Sales tax is immediate. And we've lived through those here, so.
I'll use both separately, you guys choose which.
Sure.
Thank
Or
you.
even a combined report that would include both.
Yeah.
So you're gonna take that one on?
Sure.
Thank you.
Really, thank you.
You got it written down?
And that's gonna be implemented part of that policy then?
Yeah,
Somehow tied into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
so
say.
I think the biggest thing is
Kevin
that
was
we're,
writing up
everybody
vehicles in the policy, or?
She's working on it now, it's supposed to be for the 19th for the board to look at, but based upon last week's conversation, it was based upon budget, stability, revenue or expenditure, balanced budget, that the Social Security Administration adjustment, whatever that would be, that comes out September, would be your COLA, and then your merit is discretionary based of the board, whether it be 3, 4, 5, whatever percent, based upon the budget as well. I didn't think about any of this yet. And so that can be tied into that conversation. So when David, you have that information, I just need to implement that with Kendra, what Kendra's working on.
I'll try to work on it this week.
Okay.
Beautiful.
So we gonna table this conversation, or we gonna do, as far as 2020 salaries?
It's gone as far as it could go for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you're talking about police, but you wanna just stop right here until we get with those numbers?
Probably.
Okay, I just wanna make sure, okay.
Or you wanna make the police take home vehicles decision separately tonight? Does that help?
Seems like the
Finalize your
consensus is
budget.
that we
Yeah, it
want
seems
to
like
push that
consensus,
one.
we can all agree on that, so.
No, but I think we'll just, I was just talking about the PD, so right now, let's just take the vehicles out of the scenario. I think the board's consensus, as long as Carl and I evaluate the vehicles, you know, they live within a certain radius, they maintain them well, they earn it, not lose it. To my understanding, the board's okay with that. The Lloyd works on call for a week there on Friday through Thursday. And then I wouldn't mind adding, our foreman to that scenario, along with the chief and the director, the take-home vehicle. So I think, like,
Don't
just
you
be-
two get to take on their vehicles?
yeah, they do.
Okay.
But, I'm kind of partial to our foreman. He's went through hell and back the last 15 years, and there's a time where he was only one until we hired David, so.
Forever.
For 4
And he
months.
did.
121 days, but who was counting?
He worked.
I bet it felt like for forever to him.
He came
He
in
ran
every
over
day
the-
for 121 days with no days off, and he never quit. So when David was hired, and I know I was a police chief, Nick was a town manager, I strongly hinted to David, you might wanna consider him for your phone. Worked out pretty well so far. You just need to give him lots
He's
of
just
cash.
talking about retirement, that's, he's
Good
gonna
for
hang out
him.
with you.
I endorse that kind of
Todd
thing.
won't do well with retirement. Maybe he will, I don't know.
Oh, we could train him, we could train him up.
Well, it's kinda like what Matt said this morning, we're doing around the ring, introduce yourself. I'm Matt, I'm this, or I'm retired with my wife's house, pretty money. That's hilarious.
Oh my God, I keep having going out of my husband.
All right, so are we good for tonight?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
bring us a suggested amount for raises.
Well, David, I have David work on the percentage that Larry's talking about, and I'll, see if she has a draft ready, and I'll see for the draft policy, and maybe get that to the board before the 19th.
Yep.
Just as part of the budget conversation. Okay, so, alrighty.
When do you wanna finish this discussion?
Actually, it's down to this pointed conversation, so we could probably do this on the 19th.
Okay.
Honestly, we're pretty much done with the budget aspect, we're at a pointed conversation about salaries. So,
During our meeting.
during the meeting on the 19th, we'll do 2020 salary discussion as one of the action items. How about that? That work? 'Cause I really don't feel like another meeting extra right now, because we have Sunday, we have next Thursday, the following Tuesday. Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. So,
Plus committee.
plus committee meeting. So,
Oh my
Our
God.
next meeting's on the 19th.
Did you raise the mayor's salary?
that's being drafted as well. In 20, well, I don't remember what year it was, we did it by resolution. And then once the election takes place, and that goes.
I'm not advocating for the trustee salary to be raised at all. I'd rather see that money diverted to people who are working hard for this town, but, I also, if it is to be raised, I don't see it as a great plan that we have two pay scales for our trustees as well. Is that what we'd potentially be looking at?
That's what we did this last
We
time.
have to do it that way. That's the only way you can get it.
Because there's always 3 and 3 being elected.
And no matter, you can't vote to raise yourself.
Right.
You can vote to raise the next person behind you. If that may be you, you know what I mean? That's statute, right? I'm guessing it's statute, that's what Kenny
Yeah,
said.
the election, whether you get re-elected or you're new, you have to go through the election process to earn your raise.
But Hope told me the only thing she really wanted me to advocate for tonight for her was she wanted me to have. So I think we'll put it on as a resolution and then discuss and vote accordingly.
And that's coming up on 19th. Put it in the budget, remind it.
Sure she's ready for all this,
If I can say something really quick, thank you all for being so pro-employee and so cordial about all of this and encouraging about this, because I've sat here with Troy for 11 years now doing this, and the last couple of years have been way more relaxing than the first couple of years ever were. So I just, as a staff member that's here, it's easy to go back to our staff and say, you know, right now, there isn't a ton extra coming, but this is what management and this is what the board is trying to do for us. And that makes my job a lot easier to try and, so I appreciate it, so thank you.
We appreciate what you guys
Yeah,
do.
we appreciate you guys.
We wouldn't be doing this if you guys were a bunch of slackers.
We don't like that in the past years is any more than you guys. Oh my
I was
God.
telling them this morning, it was 10 years ago this month, my first year as manager. It was Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. We were meeting in this room because our budget was so upside down. It was my first 4 years manager. We were 150,000 in expenditures or revenue, and nobody could decide how to balance the budget. So I just looked at the board and I said, "Who do you want me to fire?" And everybody stopped talking. Like, seriously. I said, let me work on over Thanksgiving weekend, let's reconvene on Monday night next week, and then what I did is the rec had like 6,000 for uniforms, they had 3. the police had 5,000 for training, they had 2. I just went through and I slapped the whole bus. $150,000, that was fun. No reserve fund. I did eat
Happy
cookie though.
Thanksgiving, boss.